It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. 1 month later. Earth conference room. A group of parliament members sat quietly on both sides of the conference table, as if waiting for something. Congressman Han Albert's voice suddenly sounded, breaking the silence of the conference room. Why hasn't the speaker come yet? Han Kaiming sat in his seat with his eyes and nose in mind facing Albert's inquiry. The expression on his face did not change at all. It's not yet time for the election meeting. The chairman may have his own affairs. The conference room fell into silence again. After a few minutes, Albert let out a long breath, stood up from his chair, and said in plain Chinese, "Member Han, the time is almost up. Can the speaker still come?" Han Kaiming slowly closed his eyes to cover up his inner anxiety. "Why do you ask?" He tried his best to maintain his original expression and asked in a calm tone. Albert didn't speak. He just stared at Han Kaiming's face, trying to read some information from the expression on his face. Obviously, he failed. Albert kicked away his chair with some irritation. "Congressman Abbott, pay attention to order. This is Parliament, not your office." Han Kaiming raised his eyebrows, opened his eyes suddenly, and stared at Albert in front of him. Albert made a move. "Congressman Han, I remember that we should be on the same level, right? Did you appoint yourself as the second-term parliamentarian so quickly?" Facing Abbott's difficulties, Han Kaiming's expression became calmer. "Congressman Abbott, please watch your words. I'm just kindly reminding you, so that when the council leader comes, everyone will not make a fuss." Albert's expression froze. He turned his head and looked gloomily at the seat directly in front of him. Speaker, ever since the People's League was established, this old man has been pressing on top of his head. No, to be precise, it was before the People's League was established. Thinking of this, a look of irritation flashed in Albert's eyes. The conference room returned to calm again. A trace of worry flashed in Han Kaiming's eyes. In his mind, the memory of yesterday resurfaced again. Yesterday. Office of the speaker in the huge medical cabin. The congressman's eyes were slightly closed. At this time, he was in a deep sleep state. This can ensure the body function of the MP as much as possible under the premise that the cells and longevity enzymes are functioning normally. Thin tubes are connected to the congressman's long blood vessels. Inside the conduit are countless silver white nanorobots. These nanorobots are working tirelessly inside the council chairman's body. This scene has been going on for a whole month. "Professor, will the speaker wake up tomorrow?" Han Kaiming's eyes were full of worry, and he asked Lu Yongchang beside him in a low voice. Lu Yongchang looked at the various indicators displayed in the medical cabin, hesitated for a moment, and slowly shook his head. "I have no idea. You also know that the council chairman's health has reached the point where he has run out of fuel. The longevity enzyme can't work just by injecting it. At the very least, it takes a while for telomere material to be synthesized and repaired. What's more, we also need to use nanorobots to clean up various impurities in the body of the congressman." Han Kaiming sighed slightly. "But tomorrow is the election meeting." Inside Lu Yongchang's office, senior Counselor, are you really not going over yet? Lu Yongchang looked at the old man sitting on the chair in front of him with his eyes closed and asked in a low voice. Compared with a month ago, the old man's spirit was obviously much better. The old man glanced at the picture in the holographic image and responded in a low voice, "It's not the time yet. This is a rare training opportunity." Lu Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yes, the emperor is not in a hurry and the eunuch is. He should just continue watching the show honestly. Albert glanced at the hologram. Just the right time. Member Han, the time for the election meeting has come. Albert looked at Han Kaiming gloomily. "Why hasn't the chairman come yet?" Han Kaiming took a deep breath. A bad feeling flashed through his heart. Wouldn't it fail? He turned to look at the holographic projection. The beating rhythm of the second hand seemed to affect his heart. "Member Hunkeming. Albert, who didn't get any response, stood up from his chair again. I haven't seen the Speaker of Parliament for more than a month, according to the information I know. It seems that you have been doing the work of the council chairman for the past month. I have reason to doubt the chairman's physical condition. After the words fell, there was an uproar in the conference room. Most of the MPs widened their eyes. A series of eyes mixed with uneasiness and surprise were cast at Hunkeming. Some of the congressmen did not show surprise at the news. Obviously, they had more or less guessed the corresponding situation through their own channels. Facing the gazes of the congressman, Hunkeming still sat firmly on his chair. Congressman Albert, since you have such good information, why not tell everyone here what the chairman has been doing in the past month? Albert's expression changed slightly. He was caught. He really didn't know what the chairman had been doing in the past month. A faint smile appeared on Hunkeming's lips. He believed in Zero's ability. On the earth, no one would be able to cross Zero's limit. Senator Albert, there is an old saying in Zaya country, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I wonder if you have heard of it. Hunkeming stood up slowly and glanced around. Everyone, wait a moment. I believe that the chairman was just delayed by something. In Yongchang's office. The chairman looked at the picture in the holographic projection, and a smile appeared on his lips. He nodded with satisfaction, and slowly got up from his chair. Now, it's time. Time passed by minute. Just when Albert was about to stand up again to say something, the door of the conference room quietly opened. An energetic old man stood quietly in front of everyone with a faint smile on his face. Chairman Hunkeming was ecstatic. He subconsciously wanted to stand up, but was sucked by the electromagnetic absorption device. He hurriedly untied the electromagnetic absorption device, then stood up and walked towards the chairman of the council. As for Albert and some members of the council, the moment he saw the old man, his face was grey, his head was lowered, and he kept muttering the word impossible. Facing the eyes of the congressman, the old man chuckled. What, isn't it allowed for mild bones to be late once? As he said, his face became serious. I declare that the election meeting for the second chairman of the council will start now. I propose that Councillor Hunkeming be the second chairman of the council. Who is in favor and who is against? Chapter 302, Remaining Power. At the moment when the chairman of the parliament finished speaking, Albert subconsciously held his breath. This sentence instantly evoked his somewhat painful memories. Thinking back to the past, the old man also said the same words at the United Nations meeting. Senator Albert. The old man's voice suddenly sounded behind him. Albert's body trembled violently. He subconsciously untied the electromagnetic absorption device on the chair, quickly stood up, and looked behind him. I saw that the chairman of the parliament had a meaningful smile on his face, staring at him straight. Do you have any opinions? Albert's Adam's apple moved slightly, and he swallowed hard. He wanted to put forward his own opinions, for example, vote for himself. But thinking of the vigorous methods of the chairman of the parliament after the establishment of the People's Union, he hesitated. Senator Albert. The smile on the old man's face gradually disappeared, and his voice rose an octave. No, I have no opinion. Albert shook his head slowly with a bit of bitterness on his face. The chairman of the parliament took a deep look at Albert again. I hope you didn't. Albert lowered his head and avoided the eyes of the chairman. Okay, sit down. The chairman saw Albert's look and didn't say anything. He patted his shoulder and whispered, just do your job. Under the chairman's chairmanship, the election meeting ended quickly. Without a doubt, Hunkeming was elected as the second chairman. The chairman, no, the old chairman gave up his seat and sat in Hunkeming's original seat. Perhaps because he had gotten rid of the worry, the old chairman looked at Albert, who was sitting opposite him, with a smile. Albert, we are on the same level now. Albert, old chairman, what are you talking about? Albert looked at the smiling face of the old man in front of him, and said with a frustrated look, in my heart, you will always be the chairman. The old man didn't say anything, and smiled without comment. Then he turned his gaze to Hunkeming, who was sitting in the first seat. Chairman I propose to increase the term of office of members to 100 years, as soon as the voice fell, there was an uproar in the conference room. 100 years, Chairman. Is this a bit inappropriate, old Chairman? 100-year term. What's the difference between this and the hereditary system? Seeing countless members questioning and asking him, the old chairman smiled faintly without waiting for him to speak. Han Kaiming, who was sitting in the first seat, coughed lightly. Everyone, be quiet. After attracting the attention of others, he reached out and pressed a switch on the conference table. A holographic image appeared right above the conference table. In the image, there was a silver white medical cabin. From the surrounding layout and facilities, it can be seen that this medical cabin is placed in the office of the old chairman. Now, I will introduce a new technology to you. The latest research results of the Academy of Sciences, longevity enzyme. In summary, the human lifespan limit will be raised to more than 600 years. Compared to this, a 100-year term is not long. The meeting room was quiet. After a short silence, a noisy discussion suddenly sounded. Albert's eyes were slightly red, and he looked at the holographic image in front of him with heavy breathing, and asked in a low voice, "Old speaker, is this true?" The old speaker chuckled and pointed at himself. "Is it true or not? Can't you see it?" Albert's breathing became heavier again. At this moment, he understood everything. No wonder he couldn't see the speaker for a whole month, and no wonder the speaker's physical condition improved visibly. Longevity has always been the pursuit of mankind since ancient times. Albert, who has entered old age, is naturally no exception. Speaker Han, when can this technology be promoted? Albert was a little impatient and turned to ask Han Kaiming. He is not young anymore. Albert could clearly feel that his body functions were declining. Facing Albert's clear-cut question, Han Kaiming shrugged. At present, the specific time of going online is unknown. How could this happen? Albert was stunned for a few seconds, and a hint of anger appeared on his face. Is this the privilege of the old chairman? This is differential treatment. I protest. As Albert's voice sounded, several older members of the parliament responded. The old chairman of the parliament did not speak, and even looked at the scene with interest. He wanted to see how Han Kaiming would solve this incident. Facing the protest of the congressman, Han Kaiming looked calm and said calmly, "This is not my decision. You can go to protest to Professor Liu." The originally noisy meeting room suddenly became quiet. Albert's face was a little ugly. Protest to Liu Yongchang. What a joke. The Academy of Sciences and the Parliament are on an equal footing, and at certain times, the Parliament even has to follow the Academy of Sciences arrangements. How can he protest? Han Kaiming slowed down his tone a little. At present, this technology is still in the biological experiment stage, and it is used by the chairman of the council for various reasons. As he said, a smile appeared on his lips. Of course, if someone is willing to be the second volunteer, I believe Professor Liu will not object. Albert lowered his eyes and avoided Han Kaiming's gaze. Han Kaiming looked around calmly. Seeing that no one raised any objections, he spoke again. In this case, let's start voting on the old chairman's proposal now. First of all, I agree with this proposal. As soon as the voice fell, a green light lit up in the holographic projection above the conference table. I agree. Second, in just 1 minute, more than half of the green lights on the holographic projection lit up. Seeing this scene, the smile on the corner of the old chairman's mouth became more intense. So far, he has achieved all his goals. After the meeting, the old chairman and Han Kaiming returned to Liu Yongchang's office again. The old councillor sat on the chair in front of LV Yongchang's desk, looking at him solemnly. "Yongchang, tell me the truth. How long can I live?" LV Yongchang smiled bitterly, shook his head helplessly, and gave the answer after a sigh. "According to the examination report, I have about 10 years to live. Your body is too strained. Even with the help of longevity enzymes, it can only make your cells divide 4 to 5 more times. The longevity effect of longevity enzymes is better the sooner it is carried out. For older people, it can only play a very small role." Chapter 303, Zero Gravity After Effects. LV Yongchang's answer made the two of them fall into silence. 10 years. The old man's eyes showed some emotion. Enough, he chuckled and patted Han Kaiming beside him. Kaiming, you have to hurry up. I can only help you for 10 years, Han. Kaiming's eyes were slightly red, and he nodded vigorously. Seeing this, the smile on the old man's face became more intense. Look at you two. Why are you so sad? I still have 10 years. LV. Yongchang pulled the corners of his mouth with difficulty and showed an ugly smile. By the way, I plan to take a break for a while, the old man said lightly. Han Kaiming was stunned for a moment and nodded repeatedly. Yes, you should have a good rest. The old man looked at Han Kaiming with a calm look. I mean, I'm going to withdraw from the parliament. This, why? Han Kaiming exclaimed. Didn't you just say you would help me? The old man smiled and shook his head. Kaiming, if I'm here, what use are you? Han Kaiming was silent. The words are rough, but the truth is true. As long as the old parliamentarian sits on the chair of the parliament, including Han Kaiming, they will subconsciously ask for his opinion. The old man continued in a calm tone. If something really happens, it's not too late to call me. LV. Yongchang on the side did not speak. This kind of thing is not something he should intervene in. By the way, Yongchang, is there any place suitable for retirement life? The old man changed the subject and asked LV Yongchang with a smile. I will enjoy it next. LV. Yongchang couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Retirement life. This is really difficult. In his opinion, the observatory of Earth is the best place for scenery. But he can't let the old man enjoy his old age there, right? Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. Old counselor, do you want to go to Proxima B for fun? It just so happens that the surface infrastructure construction has come to an end. 2 weeks later, the old counselor took the newly opened flight and set off. In order to give the old man a comfortable environment, LV Yongchang specially asked Zero to carry out appropriate renovation work on some areas of Proxima B. Although this will affect the construction progress of some projects, but in LV Yongchang's opinion, the contribution made by the old counselor to mankind is fully worthy of such treatment. LV Yongchang stood by the porthole, watching Zhuan second gradually go away, with a bit of emotion in his eyes. Okay, it's time for us to start working. Zero, notify Mo Xiang and ask them to get ready. LV Yongchang's eyes sparkled. Tomorrow, we will set off for Proxima B. Start the photon computer research and development project. Early the next morning. LV Yongchang dressed neatly and came to port 1 of Earth. 5 Zhuan second ships were quietly parked in place. A scientific researcher had already been waiting in front. Academician Mo Xiang. LV Yongchang called out loudly. Mo Xiang, who was waiting in front of Zhuan second and doing nothing, was enlightened when he heard LV Yongchang's voice and quickly raised his head to look at him. Professor Lu. Mo Xiang came up quickly. You are finally here. LV Yongchang chuckled. You are impatient, right? Mo Xiang nodded with a wry smile. More than impatient. You don't know how I have been spending the past few months. My scientific researchers come to ask me every now and then when they can start the research and development of photon computers. I really am. As he said that, he shook his head and sighed repeatedly. LV Yongchang laughed and patted Mo Xiang on the shoulder. There is no other way. The research and development of photon computers cannot be done on the Earth. We can only start the work after the surface laboratory is completed. Okay, no more nonsense. Board the ship. As he spoke, he walked quickly towards the Zhuan second in front of him. Today, let's go and see the scenery of an alien star, Proxima B. On a plain full of purple black disc-shaped plants, there stands a building that is out of tune with the surrounding environment. The building is a rectangular block, silver white in color. This is the photon computer laboratory that was just completed not long ago. 5 Zhuan second spacecraft drew a beautiful arc in the air and slowly landed on the apron. The hatch opened. One by one, researchers in spacesuits walked out. From a distance, the walking postures of these researchers seemed a bit weird. The camera zoomed in. The strange feeling became stronger. The footsteps of each researcher seemed particularly heavy. It was as if a huge stone was pressing on them. Professor Mo Xiang's exhausted voice came from the radio channel. I have been staying in space for a long time, and I really can't adapt to life on the surface of the planet. Lu. Yongchang took a step forward with difficulty. Yes, not to mention, the gravity of Proxima b is 10% greater than that of the Earth. If it weren't for daily exercise, I guess we wouldn't even be able to walk now. This is the sequel of living in a zero-gravity environment for a long time. It is inevitable. Even daily exercise can only reduce its impact. Osteoporosis, muscle atrophy, these are all minor effects. If humans grow up in a zero-gravity environment, they may even lose their sense of direction and ability to perceive gravity, although short-term loss can be restored by acquired means. But if it continues for a long time, it will lead to the degeneration of sensory organs, and then the problem will be serious. That is why humans have stopped all reproductive behaviors since leaving the Earth. On the one hand, it is to save resources, and on the other hand, it is also to prevent this degeneration phenomenon. Thinking of this, Lu Yongchang murmured in a low voice, "It seems that the next batch of starships will need to manufacture a batch of devices that simulate gravity. For humans at present, it is not difficult to manufacture devices that simulate gravity. A huge, rotating wheel-shaped structure can provide the so-called artificial gravity. Unlike the gravity generated by the planet, this artificial gravity is essentially centrifugal force. By adjusting the angular velocity and the radius of the wheel-shaped structure, it can easily simulate the artificial gravity equal to that on the surface of the Earth. Living in a gravity environment with a certain amount every day can greatly reduce the occurrence of the above sequelae. But there are only two ways to completely solve this problem. 1. Find a planet similar to the Earth to live on. 2. Create true artificial gravity. Of the two, Lv Yongchang first eliminated the second option. Among the four fundamental forces, gravity has always been the most mysterious. At least at present, he has not seen any hope of solving it. Professor, we are here. Mo Xiang's voice interrupted his meditation. Lv Yongchang raised his head. The door of the laboratory in front of him has been opened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, Semi-Transparent Body. On the other side, on the surface of Proxima b, a closed sanatorium. When they first arrived on the ground, the strong gravity of Proxima b almost crushed the old senator. Long-term life in a zero-gravity environment is the most unfriendly to the elderly. After a day of adaptation, the old senator regained some mobility. Of course, most of the time he still relies on an electric wheelchair and several mechanical arms to move. Although he is a little inconvenient to move, the old senator does not dislike his current life. In the closed sanatorium, he basks in the weak sunlight from Proxima through the glass curtain wall, feeling the gravity pulling him to the ground. He seems to have found the feeling on Earth again. Outside the glass curtain wall, there are some small shrub-like plants with purple-black leaves. He can even occasionally see some strange insects crawling around the glass curtain wall. These alien creatures seem to be curious about this strange building. In the distance, there are several tall electromagnetic cannons. That is the protective device responsible for guarding the sanatorium. Zero's holographic image stood beside the curtain wall, silently watching the old man, waiting for his next order. The old senator sat in a wheelchair, squinting slightly and looking at the sky. 5 long flight tracks appeared in the orange-yellow sky. He showed some understanding in his eyes. It seems that the surface laboratory has been completed. Presumably, Professor Lu will start to be busy again. He slowly closed his eyes, feeling the warmth from Proxima Centauri, and sighed silently in his heart. I hope everything goes well. I hope that human civilization will always prosper. The next day. Photon computer laboratory. After a night of rest, most researchers have adapted to the gravity environment of Proxima b. Although some intense physical exercises cannot be carried out, normal actions are no longer a problem. The Photon Computer Research and Development Project was officially launched. In the laboratory, several researchers stood in front of a huge holographic projection. Professor, the new material has been successfully synthesized. There is no mistaking the data of Proxima civilization. A voice full of surprise sounded in the quiet laboratory. LV Yongchang's expression moved slightly, and he immediately stepped forward and rushed in the direction of the sound. Mo Xiang, who was standing by, was stunned for half a second and immediately followed Lu Yongchang's footsteps. Did the property test pass? He asked as he walked. Not yet. The researcher shook his head. LV Yongchang did not continue to ask and quickened his pace. The distance to the experimental table was not far. If he were on the Earth, Lu Yongchang believed that he could reach the destination within 10 seconds, but now, after more than 20 seconds, he successfully dragged his heavy body to the experimental table. A piece of black material lay quietly on the experimental table. The object was rectangular. Yongchang, Mo Xiang, who followed him, came to the experimental table panting. He glanced at the inconspicuous rectangular material on the experimental table, and his eyes showed some doubts. Is this the key material for the photon computer? LV Yongchang stared at the black block in front of him and nodded silently. Yes, in the data, this new material has a magical property. In the Proxima civilization, this material is called SYNOPSIS. I prefer to call it a semi-transparent body, as, for the reason, it is very similar to the properties of semiconductors. It's just that the object of action is not electrons, but photons. Mo Xiang looked at Lu Yongchang with a puzzled look. LV Yongchang has been deciphering and interpreting the Proxima civilization data. That's why, at present, he is the only one in the laboratory who knows the properties of this so-called semi-transparent body. The corners of Lu Yongchang's mouth gradually rose. A mysterious smile appeared on his face. Come, look at it against the light. As he spoke, Lu Yongchang reached out to pick up the black rectangular block on the experimental table and handed it to Mo Xiang. Mo Xiang hesitated for a moment and carefully reached out to take the rectangular block. Then he raised it above his head and observed the light on the ceiling. It was pitch black. In his sight, the cuboid was like a small black hole, not allowing any light to pass through it. This Mo Xiang turned his head and cast a puzzled look at Lu Yongchang. Lu Yongchang leaned over and glanced at the black cuboid from Mo Xiang's perspective. Look in another direction, he said softly with a more obvious smile on his lips. Mo Xiang, although he was full of doubts, he still followed Lu Yongchang's words and turned the black cuboid in his hand in a different direction. This time, when he looked up at the so-called black cuboid, a magical phenomenon occurred. The light shone through the black cuboid and onto Mo Xiang's face. Perhaps because of the low light transmittance, the originally bright light seemed a little dim in Mo Xiang's eyes. He squinted slightly and adjusted the direction of the cuboid back and forth towards the light. After several experiments, he swallowed hard and looked at Lu Yongchang, who was smiling beside him, in disbelief. Is this a one-way light transmitting body? Lu Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Remember what I just said? It has similar properties to semiconductors. The rectification effect of semiconductors is also reflected in it. We all know that the conductivity of a semiconductor is related to the direction of the applied electric field. If a forward voltage is applied to both ends of it, the current can pass smoothly, but if a reverse voltage is applied, it is non-conductive. This semi-transparent material is similar to it, except that the voltage becomes light pressure, and the electrons are replaced by photons. Mo Xiang's breathing gradually became faster. This is the perfect electronic switch. With this feature alone, we can easily solve the logic gate problem of photonic computers. Lu Yongchang corrected softly. To be precise, it's a photon switch. Logic gates, in the simplest terms, are 0 and 1 point in electronic computers. The rectification effect of semiconductors can be used to make electronic switches, which can be used to count zeros and ones. This is also the basis of electronic computers and binary bits with 0 and 1. There is a series of logical operations. The technology is very basic, but for photonic computers, it is the biggest problem. As early as 100 years ago, humans began to research this technology. Of course, some solutions have been found. For example, a surface wave excitation source is processed on the surface of a gold film. and grooves are used to control the path of light point using the different phase differences formed by the convergence of light emitted by multiple light sources and passing through different path lengths. A series of logic gates are obtained. Point at the time, the experimental results were outstanding. Point compared with circuit logic, the logic operations of optical logic gates are so fast. Chapter 305 Ion Implantation Machine. Mozang ignored Lu Yongchang's correction. Point at this time, his hands and feet were trembling slightly with excitement. The originally troublesome problem was solved at this moment. Such an incredibly silky smooth feeling. Mozang believes that there is no more addictive feeling in the world than this. His hands trembled slightly, and he carefully placed the black rectangular object in his hands on the experimental table. Fearing that it would be damaged by his rough movements, Lu Yongchang, who was on the side, couldn't help laughing after seeing Mozang's action. Calm down. At present, this thing is only a semi-finished product, and it still needs a series of purification work before it can be used as a raw material for photonic computer wafers. Besides, I haven't finished the introduction yet. Zhang was stunned. Any more? Certainly, Lu Yongchang glanced at Mozang in surprise. If it only has this simple property, how can it be the core material of photonic computers? As he spoke, Lu Yongchang stretched out his hand and dragged the holographic image beside him to his side. It's still similar to the properties of semiconductors, based on information from Proxima Centauri. This kind of semi-transparent material does not have strong light transmission performance when the purity is high, but if we can add a little impurity to it, its light transmission performance will be greatly improved, and different types of impurities will have different effects. When Mozang heard this, his mouth opened slightly, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Isn't this the doping ability of semiconductors? Mozang's tone suddenly became excited. Well, is there any experimental data? Lu Yongchang nodded and slid his hand in the air in the holographic projection. Several crude experimental records appeared. Mozang looked at Lu Yongchang with questions. That's it. Facing Mozang's question, Lu Yongchang spread his hands, shrugged and said, that's it. Don't ask me. I don't know what these big cockroaches are thinking in their heads. They actually delayed such an important experiment until 50 years later. Zhang put his hand on his forehead. Oh my god. What a waste of natural resources. He honestly believed that if this material fell into his hands he shows disrespect for science by sleeping 8 hours a day. Lu Yongchang shook his head with a strange expression. You can't say that. If they really get hold of this material, we probably won't end up well. Hearing this, Mozang looked a little weird. Speaking of it, it seems to make sense. Lu Yongchang brought back the topic of deviation. Although the experimental data is insufficient, based on the use of semiconductors, we can basically determine the direction of the next experiment. Zhang nodded in agreement. Point compared with rectification, doping ability is of greater significance to photonic computers. For example, semiconductors. The reason why semiconductors can be made into triad transistors is inseparable from this property. Pure semiconductors have very weak electrical conductivity, but semiconductors doped with impurities can greatly improve their electrical conductivity. It can be divided into two types by the type of doping. Substance. Silicon crystal doped with a small amount of phosphorus or antimony is an N-type semiconductor. Silicon crystal doped with a small amount of boron or indium is a P-type semiconductor. When the two are connected, they can become a p-n junction. The so-called diode is realized by a p-n junction. As for the triad, it is realized by a p-n-p junction formed by two p-n junctions. Through these diodes and triads, various forms of logical operations become a reality. To put it simply, the semi-transparent material in front of you is actually equivalent to the silicon wafer of an electronic computer. Thinking of this, Mozang felt extremely excited. He urged again and again, Professor, quickly, verify the accuracy of the Proxima Centauri data. I have a hunch that photon computers are already waving to us. Don't worry. Lu Yongchang smiled faintly. If a worker wants to do his job well, he must first sharpen his tools. If nothing else, the newly manufactured ion implanter should be arriving soon. At The same time Zhuan-2 slowly landed on the tarmac outside the laboratory. The hatch opened slowly. More than a dozen robots moved a machine out of the Zhuan-2 cabin. Professor, your customized ion implanter has arrived. In the laboratory, Zero's voice suddenly sounded. Do I need to move it in? Yongchang was overjoyed. Hurry, 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 bring it in. Put it in a prepared clean room. Copy that, Professor. After saying that, Zero's holographic image slowly faded. Ion implanter? Mozang looked at Yongchang with a strange expression. Ah. You using it as a silicon wafer? Yongchang said with a smile. It's almost the same, but I made some changes to make it more suitable for processing semi-transparent materials. As he spoke, he opened his legs and walked towards the clean room set up next to the laboratory. In a clean room, a machine similar to a silicon wafer ion implanter is quietly placed in the center of the clean room. Yongchang and Mozang wore dust-free clothes and slowly walked into the clean room. Looking at the machine in front of him, Mozang took a deep breath. Professor, we going to start the experiment now? Yongchang nodded without comment. Of course, we are not Proxima Centauri. The sooner we master this key technology, the better. As he spoke, he carefully took out a piece of semi-transparent material cut into thin slices. Even though it was a thin slice, it still appeared black and light gray to the outside world. The reason is simple. The semi-transparent body with higher purity does not have higher light transmittance. In the absence of direct strong light, even the side that allows light to pass through looks gray. Yongchang quickly put the semi-transparent material into the ion implanter. Start the ion implanter. A slight humming sound followed. In a very short time, the ion implanter was evacuated into a vacuum. Then, the accelerator started. Specific ions were accelerated by the electric field and blasted straight towards the thin semi-transparent body. Under Zero's precise control, these ions penetrated into the material gaps of the semi-permeable body at just the right speed, and then perfectly combined with it. Time passed by minute. By minute. The buzzing sound gradually became weaker. Professor, the ion injection has been completed. Zero's reminder sounded. Yongchang held his breath slightly, stepped forward and opened the hatch of the ion injector. A piece of black flake-like material lay quietly in front of him. He carefully picked it up and turned it over. Suddenly it became clear. It was like a transparent glass. At this moment, the semi-permeable body injected with a large amount of impurities completely revealed its true appearance. Chapter 306. A crisis that just passed by. Looking at Yongchang's slow movements, Mozang on the side was sweating anxiously on his forehead. But he couldn't rush him. He could only stand aside and wait silently for Yongchang to complete his movements. Finally, Yongchang turned around. At this moment, he finally saw the material that served as the core of the photon computer. The front, or the transparent side, looked like a piece of ice just taken out of ice water because the concentration of injected ions was different. The light transmittance of different areas of the ice was also significantly different. The part with the lowest ion concentration was dim and frosted glass-like. The part with the highest concentration could clearly see the scene on the back. As Yongchang slowly turned the semi-transparent material in his hand, all the magical scenes were replaced by an extremely deep black. Success. Seeing this magical scene, Mozang muttered to himself. Yongchang also nodded with a smile. Yes, from now on, the research of photon computers is on the right track. The breakthrough of key materials has greatly advanced the research and development of photon computers, but it does not mean that photon computers have been successfully developed. On the contrary, they are still far away from the real photon computer. However, compared with the previous research method that was like a headless fly, the research with a clear direction is more exciting. 1 month later, Mozang knocked on the door of Yongchang's office with a pair of big panda eyes. Professor, we succeeded. The Door opened automatically. Seeing the scene in the office, Mo Ziyang suddenly stopped shouting. I saw Lu Yongchang frowning and sitting behind his desk. In front of him were dozens of holographic images. In each image, there were dense and complex graphics. These dozens of holographic projections were stacked together, forming a messy but beautiful picture. Just one glance, Mo Ziyang felt dizzy. He was powerless to appreciate this unique beauty. After retracting his gaze, Mo Ziyang walked into the office as lightly as possible, came to the sofa beside him, and sat down slowly. Academician. Mo, perhaps. Because he noticed that the door of the office was open, LV Yongchang quickly glanced at him, and seeing that it was Mo Ziyang, he slowed down his movements and asked softly, "What's the matter, Mo?" Ziyang was slightly stunned, and waved his hand quickly. "Professor, you go first. I'm not in a hurry." LV Yongchang did not stop his movements, and was still sketching something on the drawing in front of him. "Just, you say it, I can't finish it in a short time." Hearing this, Mo Ziyang no longer hesitated and said directly, "Professor, the architecture of the photon computer has been completed." LV Yongchang's sketching action suddenly paused. "Has zero been verified?" "It has been verified, and no loopholes have been found so far." Mo Ziyang replied hurriedly. LV Yongchang's eyes lit up. "Okay." He stopped sketching and looked up at Mo Ziyang. "You know the purification process of semi-transparent materials. Let Lin cooperate with you to make a prototype first." Mo Ziyang nodded hesitantly. "Then Professor, your work here." LV Yongchang glanced at the stacked holographic projections in front of him, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, within 2 days, my task here can also be completed." A week later, with the overtime work of the researchers, a photon computer test machine was successfully born. Unlike electronic computers, there is no current passing through its wafer. It is filled with crisscrossing laser beams. Because it is a test machine, the size of the photon computer is somewhat unsatisfactory. It occupies the area of a whole room, about 200 square meters. It even exceeds the size of the first generation of electronic computers. LV Yongchang stood outside the computer room and looked at the screen inside the photon computer through the glass. "Prepare to start the machine." LV Yongchang gave the order without looking back. Under Zero's control, a strong current came from a small fusion reactor outside the laboratory and entered the machine room along the wire, made of room temperature superconducting material. The laser transmitters started one by one. Beams of red lasers, refracted or reflected, passed through devices made of semi-transparent materials one by one. Inside the machine room, a large net composed of countless lasers suddenly appeared. Looking at the picturesque scene in front of him, LV Yongchang was extremely excited. The photon computer is about to succeed. Humanity is finally about to enter the threshold of the second level civilization. Thinking of the experience of more than 100 years, LV Yongchang even had some tears in his eyes. The photon computer is running normally. Aside, Mo Ziyang's voice was full of surprise and excitement. LV Yongchang took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. "Zero, try the performance of the photon computer." Received. LV Yongchang responded quickly to LV Yongchang's request. In the huge holographic projection, densely packed data flashed across the screen in an instant. Through the already established data transmission line, Zero sent part of the data to the photon computer. Mistake. Data lost. A huge red exclamation mark appeared in front of everyone. At the same time, Zero autonomously stopped the data transmission task that had just started. Lu Yongchang's face changed slightly. The original excitement dissipated instantly. As for the scientific researchers on the side, their faces were even paler this time. What's going on, Mo?" Ziyang's eyes showed a bit of panic. It was verified at that time that there was no problem with the structure. Lu Yongchang waved his hand gently and said softly, "Don't panic. It's probably not a structural problem." After speaking, he frowned and examined it carefully. After more than 10 minutes, his frowning eyebrows relaxed a little. "Zero, how much data was lost? Did it affect you?" "Less than 1% of the data was lost, and the repair has been completed." Zero's voice was as calm as ever. "No adverse effects have been found yet, Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. Fine. Zero's powerful self-correction ability was fully demonstrated at this moment. Professor, what is going on? Mo. Ziyang asked in a low voice. At this time, he also realized from the various data in front of him the crisis that he had just passed by human civilization. Data loss is not a big deal. But if what is lost is zero core data, then there will be a big problem. Fortunately, Zero stopped the loss in time and intercepted the data transmission command independently. Otherwise, the consequences are disastrous. Chapter 307 Secondary Civilization. So, what went wrong? Mo. Ziyang's eyes were full of fear. This situation has never occurred during the trial run. Why would the official run? LV. Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head, speaking of which, this matter should be blamed on me. I actually forgot that the existence of Zero is based on the quantum computer. Mo. Ziyang was stunned for a moment and then suddenly realized, so that's it. As he said, he also showed a bitter smile on his face. This is embarrassing. The photon computer currently manufactured is just an integrated optical path computer compared with the original electronic computer. It just changed the original circuit into an optical path to accommodate the strong artificial intelligence of Zero. It is estimated that an optical quantum computer is needed. Photon computer, optical quantum computer. The two are only one word apart, but there is a world of difference. The former still uses the basic binary operation method. The latter uses quantum operation. LV Yongchang looked at the holographic projection in front of him thoughtfully. On the projection, the red warning sign is still flashing. The experiment failed. Actually, there is no such thing. Photonic computers and optical quantum computers seem to be quite different, but they can still include each other. Photonic computers mainly emphasize the data transmission method. After replacing electrons with photons, not only the data transmission speed is greatly accelerated, but the original heating problem will also be greatly improved. Thus, the computing speed can be increased in disguise. The main point of optical quantum computers is the internal data processing method. To put it simply, photonic computers affect external hardware, while optical quantum computers are related to internal software. Professor, finding that LV Yongchang had not spoken for a long time, Mo Ziyang's eyes flashed with a trace of worry, and whispered, Professor, photonic computers have succeeded, and optical quantum computers can also succeed. It's nothing more than spending a little more research time. LV Yongchang came back to his senses. He looked at Mo Ziyang beside him with a strange look. Ahem. LV Yongchang coughed lightly. Of course I know this. Just now, I was actually thinking about how to implement the photonic quantum computer. Mo Ziyang. Okay, let's all go. LV Yongchang waved his hand. By the way, academician Mo, please test the performance of this photonic computer again. I will solve the photonic quantum computer. As he said that, he turned and walked towards his office. The office door opened. LV Yongchang quickly returned to his seat. Zero, do not open the door without my permission. After giving the order, he closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, his consciousness had already arrived at the technology tree space. It was still a familiar look. The only difference was that the cursor of photonic computer technology was much brighter than before. According to his previous experience, such brightness basically means that the basic technology for realizing this technology has been mastered. The only thing left is the last step, to manufacture it completely. Seeing this, LV Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that his guess is correct. There are only two difficulties in realizing the photon computer and the system. First, the control, setting and reading of photons. In fact, humans have already mastered this technology. The best application is the long distance communication device. The second is the integrated optical path. To realize optical quantum computing, it must be based on the photon computer. Another month. In the office. A holographic image quietly unfolds. Professor, the installation work has been completed. As soon as Ling's voice fell, a trace of green light flashed in LV Yongchang's eyes again that was imperceptible to others. Okay, I know, he said hurriedly. Let academician Mo complete the preliminary preparations first. I need to rest for a while. As he said that, He closed his eyes directly. After giving up resistance, his consciousness was instantly dragged into the technology tree system space point at the top of the technology tree of the first level civilization. The light shone brightly. LV Yongchang looked up and subconsciously wanted to squint his eyes. The light did not fade at all. After a brief pause for a second, he burst into laughter. He almost forgot that this was his own consciousness. And there was no such thing as closing his eyes. The light gradually grew stronger at the same time. LV Yongchang's perspective began to rise. Controlled nuclear fusion technology, miniaturized fusion reactor, electromagnetic coil gun technology, high energy laser technology. Familiar cursors flashed before his eyes. Gradually, his consciousness came to the top of the technology tree. He raised his head and looked at the clear boundary point. That was a natural barrier between the first level civilization and the second level civilization. The light became stronger and stronger, and the boundary gradually melted. His consciousness rose again. This time, he easily crossed the boundary that symbolized the level of civilization, second level civilization. This time, his consciousness stood at the bottom of the second level civilization technology tree. The light gradually dissipated, revealing the cursor inside. Photon computer. A thin white line extended from it, extending directly to the next dim cursor. The path forward for civilization reappeared. LV Yongchang subconsciously held his breath. At the same time, a bright thin line shot up from the first level technology tree at the bottom. The two thin lines intersected and connected to an icon. Starship Adaptive Repair Technology. LV Yongchang was slightly stunned. He quickly looked down. The second thin line came from Nanorobot Technology. He suddenly realized. It seems that with the computing power of the optical quantum computer, Zero can better control those nanorobots. The thin line did not stop and continued to extend upward. The third cursor appeared. Ternary computer. The cursor was extremely dim. Seeing this, LV Yongchang's eyes showed a look of surprise. This should be the direction of computer technology. His eyes did not stop at all, and he looked directly at the dim cursor on the other side. Energy weapon initial mastery. Plasma weapon. Above it, there are several looming cursors. Energy weapon advanced. Type second laser weapon. In the distance, there are cursors marked with material technology. Looking at these dim cursors, LV Yongchang's eyes are as hot as fire. He can't wait to analyze these unknown technologies, but his reason stopped him from moving. At least for now, he doesn't want to visit Dr. Wen. He reluctantly withdrew his consciousness and broke away from the technology tree space. Sitting on the chair, taking a deep breath and calming down his inner throbbing, he stood up and walked towards the office door. Chapter 308. 10 times the computing power. Professor Lu. Seeing Lu Yongchang walk into the laboratory, Mo Xiang's eyes flashed with joy, and he walked quickly to his side and said, "The preparations have been completed, just waiting for you." LV Yongchang smiled and nodded to Mo Xiang. "How is the operation status?" Mo Xiang responded quickly with a slightly excited tone. "Its operation status is good. I just did some tests on this optical quantum computer. Guess what? Its computing power is far greater than the quantum supercomputing center on the Earth. Now, as long as Zero can move successfully, the optical quantum computer research and development project will be completely successful." As he said, Mo Xiang's eyes became more excited. "Professor, I have a hunch that this trial run will definitely be successful." Hearing this, Lu Yongchang's eyes smiled even more. Of course it will succeed. He believed it more than anyone else present. The reason is very simple. The technology tree system has been successfully promoted to level 2. This is the most powerful proof. Of course, this reason cannot be brought out. He turned his head to look at the holographic image beside him, confirmed it and gave the order. "Zero, start the second experiment." As he said that, he walked to the modified machine room. Through the glass, he could clearly see the crisscrossing laser beams in the machine room. The moment the order was issued, the brightness of the laser beams increased slightly. Like the first experiment, a piece of data was first transmitted from Earth to the optical quantum computer through the quantum long-distance communication device. But unlike the last experiment, there was no abnormality in the data this time. Environmental inspection in progress. In just a few seconds, the words on the holographic projection changed. Environmental inspection. passed. Communication status inspection. Communication status. But, lines of Chinese characters flashed quickly in the holographic projection point. This is 0 preparing for the next large amount of data transmission point. A few minutes later, the holographic projection picture changed quietly. Point. A progress bar appeared in front of everyone. Data is being transmitted. The progress bar moved forward bit by bit like a snail crawling. Point. Although the transmission speed of optical quantum computers is much faster than that of electronic computers, the transmission speed at this time does not depend on optical quantum computers. Rather, it depends on the transmission speed of quantum long distance communication. Point. After all, Zero's body is in the Earth on the synchronous orbit of Proxima Centauri. 1 hour later. Data transmission successful. Seeing this line of Chinese characters, LV Yongchang's face brightened. Point. He looked at the computer room next to him again and tentatively shouted, 0. The moment the voice came out, LV Yongchang slightly pinched his sweat. Professor, I'm here. The holographic projection unfolded beside LV Yongchang, and Zero's virtual image appeared in front of everyone. How? LV Yongchang's voice was a little dry. Compared with the Earth Quantum Supercomputing Center, how much has the computing power increased? Without any pause, Zero quickly answered, Professor, according to preliminary test results, the computing power of the optical quantum computer has reached 993% of the quantum supercomputing center, nearly 10 times increase. In the laboratory, there was a brief silence for a few seconds afterwards. A warm applause rose to the sky. Professor, we succeeded. Mo. Ziyang was very excited. His eyes were slightly red. We finally succeeded. As he said this, a line of hot tears slowly slid down Mo Ziyang's cheeks. Unlike LV Yongchang, Mo Ziyang has been conducting a research project on optical quantum computers. This research has been carried out from Mars to Proxima Centauri. Point. This feeling of devoting years to research, but not making any progress, LV Yongchang has also experienced it in his previous life. Point. Therefore, he understands Mo Ziyang's feelings at this time. Point. He reached out and patted Mo Ziyang's back gently and sighed in a low voice. Yes, it finally succeeded. Human civilization has finally become a second-level civilization. Mo. Ziyang's emotions calmed down a little. Point. He reached out and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and his face was full of a relaxed smile. Point. Mo Ziyang smiled and joked to LV Yongchang, Professor, can I rest next? To his surprise, after hearing his question, LV Yongchang fell into deep thought. Professor? The smile on Mo Ziyang's face disappeared instantly. LV Yongchang came back to his senses and looked at Mo Ziyang, who was full of anxiety. Point. He smiled and patted Mo Ziyang's shoulder. Don't worry, you can definitely take a break. Before Mo Ziyang could take a breath, he spoke again. Just 1 week. Next, there is a new research task. Mo Ziyang, did you hear what people said? It's a research project on the next generation of computers. LV Yongchang said lightly. Why? Not interested. It's okay. I can give the project to someone else. Just take a good rest. Mo Ziyang. Hey. Looking at the weird eyes of the researchers around him, Mo Ziyang suddenly became anxious. Professor, don't be like this. I have made contributions to the People's Federation. I have shed blood for the People's Federation. Now, it was LV Yongchang's turn to be speechless, looking at Mo Ziyang, who was possessed by the drama queen in front of him. He waved his hands helplessly. Okay, just kidding. You have a good rest. The next task will be important. Mo Ziyang put away the smile on his face and nodded seriously. I understand. It's just, Professor, do you have any ideas for the next generation of computers? How about you tell me first? Lu Yongchang glanced at him with a half smile. You sure you want to know about the research project now? Do you still have the time to take a vacation? Mo Ziyang looked suffocated. Point. That makes sense. Point. He waved his hand with a sneer. No, forget it. Just pretend I didn't ask. Lu Yongchang chuckled, turned and walked towards the office. Next, you can go to Proxima B to experience the alien atmosphere, accompanied by a robot, of course. Be safe. Mo Ziyang was slightly startled. Professor, what about you? Lu Yongchang reached out and opened his office door. I have to go back to Earth half. An hour later Zhuan-2 took off from the helipad in front of the laboratory point. After drawing a curve in the air, it rushed straight towards the dark yellow sky point. A shrill cry came from the laboratory. Fooled. Mo. Zhang sat on the chair helplessly. Beside him, several scientific researchers suppressed their smiles. Not knowing about the research project is even more painful. How can I rest? Isn't this going to kill me? Chapter 309 Fleet Dual Command System. Earth Zhuan number 2 sailed straight towards the port in its belly point under Zero's control. The Earth port slowly opened. Zhuan slowly sailed into the port point. The hatch opened, and Lu Yongchang, wearing a spacesuit, walked out quickly. After stepping off the spaceship, he frowned and twisted his body unaccustomedly. TSK, it's hard to adapt to the gravity of Proxima Centauri b and suddenly return to a weightless environment. It feels really, as he spoke, he shook his head helplessly. Pity. In the technology tree system, he has not seen real artificial gravity technology. Zero. Ask Zhao Ziji to wait for me at the command center. Earth. Command center. The sound of the door opening came. Zhao Ziji suddenly raised his head and looked towards the door. Seeing it was Lu Yongchang, he quickly stood up and saluted. Professor, sit down. Lu Yongchang looked a little tired in his eyes and waved his hand casually. Don't be formal. With that said, he walked straight to Zhao Ziji, found an empty seat and sat down. Click. The sound of the electromagnetic absorption device is particularly crisp. Professor, what are you? Zhao Ziji obviously noticed the fatigue in Lu Yongchang's eyes. I just came back from Proxima b. Lu Yongchang stretched out his hand, pinched his eyebrows hard, and said with force, photon computer technology has made a breakthrough. Zhao Ziji was stunned for a moment, then his eyes showed ecstasy. Really? Oh, why would I lie to you about something like this? Lu Yongchang chuckled and shook his head. I came to you today. The focus is not on this aspect. Hearing this, the smile on Zhao Ziji's face suddenly faded a bit. Professor, please tell me. Lu Yongchang hesitated for a moment. Then, he took a deep breath. What do you think of this war? After speaking, he stared into Zhao Ziji's eyes, trying to read his inner thoughts. Zhao Ziji's eyes dodged slightly, and he said softly, I feel good. We won the victory and won hundreds of years of peaceful development for human civilization. The expression on Lu Yongchang's face did not change at all. Tell the truth. After a few minutes Zhao Ziji smiled bitterly and shook his head. Professor, to be honest, I think this war is a failure. Lu Yongchang did not show any surprise at Zhao Ziji's words. After adjusting his sitting position, he signaled softly, tell me what you think. Zhao Ziji pondered for a moment and organized some words in his mind. Professor, after the war, I conducted several reviews on my own. Speaking of this, Zhao Ziji showed some hesitation on his face. Seeing Lu Yongchang's encouraging eyes, he still said what was in his heart. Both we and the Proxima Centauri performed very poorly in this war. Lu Yongchang nodded with a wry smile and followed Zhao Ziji's words. It's like two little brats with no fighting experience, right? Zhao Ziji nodded silently. Lu Yongchang continued. This is the reason why I came to you. According to Zero comprehensive considerations, your performance should be the best in the war that just ended. Although there are many mistakes, compared with others, it is already very good. Hearing this, Zhao Ziji's eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. He was a little unclear about the meaning behind Lu Yongchang's words. He opened his mouth and tried to say something, but Lu Yongchang didn't give him a chance to interrupt. I thought about it for a long time. First of all, in the face of interstellar wars that will inevitably exist in the future, restructuring is urgent. Zhao Ziji subconsciously held his breath. What do you think of the dual command system? Lu Yongchang asked softly. Zhao Ziji's eyes became even more confused. He had never considered such a problem. I think you commanded it very well. Hearing this, Lu Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. I may not know as much as you about interstellar warfare. Zhao Ziji shook his head repeatedly. Professor, don't say that. This is mankind's first interstellar war. We don't know the enemy at all. It's already very good to achieve such results. Faced with the new weapons of the Proxima Centauri civilization, you are the only one who came up with a solution, Lu. Yongchang spread his hands. Look, you also said that this is my role, tactical command. I don't have the energy to get involved. Therefore, I'm prepared to activate a dual command system. Tactical command, mainly responsible for tactical arrangements in interstellar wars. After comprehensive evaluation in all aspects, I think you are the best candidate for this position. The technology commander, that is, me, is still doing my job. Analyze the technology of the enemy civilization, find loopholes, and carry out precise strikes. As he said that, he stretched out his right hand towards Zhao. Let's get acquainted again with Lu Yongchang, the chief technology commander of the human fleet. Zhao. Ziji's breathing was short and his pupils were trembling slightly. The news came too suddenly. But looking at the gentle smile on Lu Yongchang's face, his originally panicked mind gradually calmed down. He took a deep breath, stretched out his right hand, and grasped Lu Yongchang's right hand. The tactical commander of the human fleet, Zhao, please give me your advice. Alright. After letting go of his hand, Lu Yongchang clapped his hands with a relaxed look on his face. You can think of throwing away this burden, Zhao. By the way, tell me about the review you just mentioned in detail. Lu Yongchang said with a smile. What problems did our fleet have in this war? I will improve the fleet based on what you proposed, Zhao. Ziji's expression became solemn, and his back straightened instantly. This is a big deal. The first and most important one, intelligence acquisition, Zhao. Ziji said solemnly. From the beginning to the end of the war, we did not have enough knowledge about Proxima Centauri civilization. This has cost the lives of a large number of our soldiers. Lu Yongchang's expression turned slightly gloomy. Not long ago, the scene of the funeral held by the human fleet for the soldiers who died in the war is still vivid in my mind. At that time, the old parliamentarian personally ordered that March 1st of each year be designated as the Memorial Day of Human Civilization. To commemorate those soldiers who sacrificed their lives for human civilization in interstellar wars. However, no matter how grand the funerals and anniversaries are, they cannot save the lives of those soldiers. Lu Yongchang took a long breath. It was as if he wanted to spit out all the depressed energy in his heart. In this regard, I have already thought of solutions. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand in the air. The holographic projection was quietly turned on. Small cluster detector chapter 310 drones and adaptive repair technology. This is Proxima Centauri civilization's detector. Looking at the model presented on the holographic projection, Zhao was slightly stunned and immediately asked. Lu Yongchang nodded and confirmed Zhao's question. Not bad. Unlike starships, with our current technology, small detectors can be made into spheres. This can greatly increase the strength of the detector, so it can withstand higher accelerations and have stronger maneuverability. Of course, they are similar on the outside, but they are completely different on the inside. Unlike the showy stuff of the Proxima Centauri civilization, the detector I designed has real detection capabilities. As he spoke, Lu Yongchang reached out and dragged the holographic projection in front of him. The star map of the Proxima galaxy appeared in front of Zhao. Proxima Centauri b, which has turned orange due to dust, suddenly appears in the center of the picture. In the picture, densely packed detectors fly in a radiating pattern from near Proxima Centauri b, with Proxima Centauri b as the center. Within 10 days, we can achieve comprehensive monitoring of the area within 1 AU. Speaking, Lu Yongchang shrugged. Of course, you can also explore further areas, but this will consume a lot of Zero's computing power. Ziji's eyes showed a bit of wonder. If we had this technology during the war with Proxima Centauri civilization, I think it can reduce a lot of unnecessary sacrifices. It's a pity that there is no if in the world. Any other questions? Looking at Zhao, who was staring blankly at the holographic projection, Lu Yongchang asked softly. Zhao suddenly came to his senses and quickly withdrew, his eyes filled with wonder. Of course. He nodded and continued. It's a question of the type of battleship. Seeing Lu Yongchang frowning, he quickly explained. We currently have too few types of warships, which is the biggest drawback. The Golden Crow battleship's combat capabilities are indeed good, but during the Battle of Proxima Centauri, it exposed its greatest flaw: not enough flexibility. Facing the siege of a large number of small battleships, the Golden Crow battleship is likely to face the situation of too many ants kill the elephant. Yongchang nodded thoughtfully. I see you mean we want to learn from the Proxima Centauri civilization and build a large number of small warships, but we don't have that many starship pilots. Besides, it is not difficult to see from the Battle of Proxima Centauri that compared with large battleships, small battleships have a higher battle damage rate. Ziji shook his head repeatedly. No, Professor, you misunderstood. What I mean is that the Golden Crow battleship is equipped with a large number of small suicide drones. No need to use it normally. They will only be released when faced with a siege by small warships under Zero's control. These drones can be used as consumables to hinder enemy attacks. Now, Yongchang completely understood point. He smiled bitterly and nodded. That's a good idea. It's just, as a result, the resource consumption has increased a lot. Small swarm detectors, suicide drones. He could even imagine how much resources these two gadgets would consume once a war started. Ziji spread his hands helplessly. Point. This is not an issue that he is responsible for. While recording Ziji's proposal, Yongchang asked, is there anything else? Upon hearing the question, Ziji frowned and hesitated for a while. There is one more problem. It's just that this may not be easy to solve. Tell me about it. Yongchang said directly without raising his head. The strength of the battleship hull. Ziji smiled bitterly and shook his head. Professor, you also know that we have no good defense against the attack from Proxima Centauri. Of course, according to my observations, the Proxima Centauri civilization also faces this problem. Yongchang was stunned for a moment, then showed a relieved smile. I thought it was something, but it turned out to be this. Professor? Ziji looked at Yongchang beside him with confusion. Don't worry, I already have a solution to this problem. Ziji. After a few minutes, a rush of footsteps came from outside the door. Then the door of the command center suddenly opened. Professor, are you looking for me? A young voice came from the door. Yongchang reached out to open the electromagnetic absorption device on his seat, stood up with a smile, and waved to the visitor. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly jogged a few steps and came to Yongchang. Professor, this is Ziji's eyes showed some doubts. This young man is a bit unfamiliar. Come on, let me introduce you first. After speaking, Yongchang pointed at the young man and said, Tao Yuda, the proud disciple of Academician Ko Liang. Ziji suddenly realized this. Ziji. Before Yongchang finished speaking, Tao Yuda said excitedly, I know, Commander of the First Fleet. Ziji. Yongchang smiled and shook his head. Not anymore, Tao. Yuda looked confused. In just a short moment, an apologetic smile appeared on his face. I'm sorry. What are you thinking about? Yongchang laughed dumbly. He is now the tactical commander-in-chief of the human fleet. Tao Yuda, General, Commander-in-chief. Then, Professor, you, Tao Yuda said hesitantly. Me. Yongchang's smile grew stronger. I'm the Commander-in-chief of Fleet Science and Technology. Seeing Tao Yuda's confused look, Yongchang couldn't help laughing. Ziji on the side also looked at Tao Yuda with a smile on his face. Later, Yongchang briefly explained the fleet dual command system that was about to be announced. After figuring it out, Tao Yuda's face was full of embarrassment. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Yongchang put away the smile on his face slightly and adjusted the holographic projection in front of him. I called you here for a scientific research task, Tao Yuda's expression suddenly became serious. He subconsciously tugged at the corners of his clothes that were floating in the air, trying to make them neater. Professor, tell me, at that time, you should have participated in the research and development of nanorobots, right? Lu Yongchang said unhurriedly. Tao Yuda was stunned, and his eyes were a little touched. Yes, Professor, you still remember me, Lu. Yongchang waved his hands repeatedly. No, 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 I saw it from Ling's side. Tao Yuda, cough. Lu Yongchang coughed lightly. None of that matters. Anyway, I read the comprehensive evaluation given by Zero. You performed well in the last research and development task. Now, there is a new research and development task for you. Holographic projection screen transformation, Starship. Adaptive repair technology using nanorobots to achieve autonomous repair of the damaged shell of the Starship. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Shining Star. The holographic projection floated quietly in the air on it. The general research direction was clearly depicted. Tao Yuda swallowed his saliva subconsciously. He could see that the subject was not difficult. Compared with those big subjects like photonic computers, this subject could even be regarded as a small appetizer with the previous technology already mastered. He only needed to make a simple advancement to successfully solve this project. Undoubtedly. This was a fat job. He asked in a trembling voice. Teacher, Professor, is this scientific research task for me to be responsible for? There was still some lack of confidence and doubt in his words from the beginning. He had been following several big guys to complete various scientific research projects until now. He has never independently conducted research on a project. Lu Yongchang read the lack of confidence in Tao Yuda's expression and words. There was some emotion in his eyes in his previous life. He also climbed up from this stage step by step. He chuckled and reached out to pat Tao Yuda on the shoulder. Yuda, believe in yourself. People always have to make progress slowly. Try it. I believe in your potential. Faced with LV Yongchang's encouragement, Tao Yuda felt a surge of blood rushing to his heart. He nodded vigorously. Professor, I will definitely live up to your expectations. LV Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Besides, even if you fail, isn't there Ko Liang K to back you up? I will throw this task to him then. Tao Yuda's face froze. After Tao Yuda left, LV Yongchang looked at Zhao Ziji on the side again and said lightly, are there any more questions? If there are, raise them all at once. Next, I may have to disappear for a while. Zhao Ziji's face was not surprised at all. He had already experienced the disappearance mentioned by LV Yongchang several times. It was nothing more than retreating to study some scientific research problems. He hesitated for a moment and whispered, Professor, is it possible to let the soldiers stay far away and remotely control the warships? I think that brainwave reading device is pretty good. Hearing this, LV Yongchang's eyes were full of helplessness. He sighed softly and shook his head. It's not that simple. The brainwave reading device is still in its early stages. It can't receive complex instructions very well. There is still a slight delay in the process of reading brain waves. What's more, we don't know whether there will be technology to shield quantum long-distance communication in the future. The expectation on Zhao Ziji's face gradually faded. He sighed softly. What a pity. Half a month later, a slight alarm sounded and awakened LV Yongchang, who was immersed in the data of Proxima civilization. During this period, he has been trying to overcome the technical barriers of primary energy weapons. However, the results were minimal. The difficulty of analyzing plasma weapons exceeded his imagination. Even Proxima civilization does not have a good solution. Think about it. The Proxima civilization doesn't even have a low-end plasma weapon. They still have at least a few nuclear torpedoes. LV Yongchang shook his head, gave up the idea of taking shortcuts, and looked up at the holographic projection in front of him. In the projection, a small yellow warning sign flashed. Zero. What's going on? LV Yongchang frowned subconsciously. Professor, the observation equipment detected an abnormal change in the brightness of ROS 154. As Zero's voice sounded, the holographic projection screen quickly switched. Lines of observation data were listed in front of him. LV Yongchang frowned and glanced at the data. It's Just a simple glare, nothing to pay attention to. Brilliance is a special phenomenon that occurs on flare stars. For normal stars, the brightness basically does not change during the short and pitiful observation time of humans. But flare stars are different. Its brightness changes irregularly. Of course, most of the time, its brightness remains constant. When large-scale flare activity occurs in the chromosphere on its surface, its brightness will change significantly. When flare occurs, the brightness of the flare star can even rise by several magnitudes within a few minutes or even seconds. Then, within tens of minutes, the brightness of its surface will return to its original appearance. This is the so-called flare point and the next destination selected by humans, the Ross 154 star system. The main star Ross 154 is a ROV-type flare star in Cetus. That is why, in the past few months, under the order of LV Yongchang, Zero has been observing Ross 154. Seeing LV Yongchang say this, Zero cancelled the yellow warning sign and the holographic projection. And LV Yongchang, he also immersed himself in his research work again. The next day. LV Yongchang just woke up from his sleep and received a communication request from Fang Zhu. He yawned and pressed the answer button in the holographic projection. Yongchang. Something happened. Hearing this familiar tone, Lu Yongchang was refreshed and shuddered violently. What happened? All the Proxima Centauri dead. Ground base was attacked. Or, in the picture, Fang Zhu was speechless. Of course not. Didn't you receive Zero's warning notice yesterday? LV Yongchang was stunned and denied subconsciously. What warning? Why don't I remember? As he spoke, his voice became lighter. In my memory, it seems that there was such a thing. Remember that he asked Zero to cancel the alarm. At the same time, Zero's voice sounded on the side. Professor, I reminded you at 20 hours, 31 minutes and 28 seconds last night about the abnormal changes of Ross 154. LV Yongchang. Ahem. A hint of embarrassment flashed across LV Yongchang's face. I remember. It was indeed the case. Isn't that a simple Yao Liang? Fang Zhu's face was full of helplessness. What? Yao Liang will last for 10 hours. LV Yongchang took a breath of cold air. The sleepiness that was still left was instantly dissipated. What the hell? How long? Because he was so surprised. LV Yongchang's voice was even on the verge of breaking. It's been more than 10 hours. Fang Zhu responded immediately. So far, Yao Liang has been in action for 10 hours, 21 minutes and 37 seconds. At the same time, Zero's voice sounded just right. LV Yongchang glanced at the holographic image beside him unhappily. Wait for me a moment. I'll go to the main laboratory right away. Regarding the future residents of mankind, LV Yongchang didn't say any nonsense and said it concisely and clearly. Chapter 312. Attack from Advanced Civilization. Earth main laboratory. In the holographic projection in front, various observation data are presented. In the laboratory, all the researchers have extremely solemn faces. A sound of mechanical transmission came from the back. Then there was a burst of hurried footsteps. Fang Zhu subconsciously turned his head to look. When he saw the person coming, he showed a little surprise in his eyes. Yongchang, you are finally here. LV Yongchang nodded at him without saying anything nonsense and said directly, what is the situation now? Fang Zhu shook his head. Very strange. Ross 154 is still in the process of shining. In these 10 hours, its brightness has increased by 5 magnitudes. LV Yongchang's face changed slightly. Abnormal to abnormal. According to past experience, as a ROV-type flare star in Cetus, Ross 154 will generally only increase by 3 to 4 magnitudes when it shines extremely brightly. But now, whether it is the duration of the occurrence of the radiant light or the intensity of the radiant light, it is an extremely abnormal phenomenon. Is there something wrong with the chromosphere? LV Yongchang frowned and muttered to himself. As he spoke, he cast his eyes on the holographic projection in front of him. Trying to find out the reason for the abnormal change from the various data that changed rapidly on it. Fang Zhu's face flashed with hesitation. After struggling for a long time, he reached out and gently pulled the corner of LV Yongchang's clothes. LV Yongchang withdrew his gaze from the holographic projection with a puzzled look, turned his head, and looked at Fang Zhu beside him. What's wrong, Fang? Zhu did not speak at the first time, but just winked at LV Yongchang. Then, he lowered his voice and said, "Follow me." After speaking, he directly reached out and grabbed LV Yongchang's arm and walked towards the corner of the laboratory. Is there anything that can't be said over there? In the corner of the main laboratory, LV Yongchang looked at Fang Zhu with a strange face. Perhaps because LV Yongchang spoke loudly, several researchers cast curious eyes at them. Fang Zhu showed some anxiety in his eyes and lowered his voice again. "Be gentle." Seeing Fang Zhu like this, LV Yongchang could only shrug helplessly and deliberately lower his voice. "Tell me, what is it that is so mysterious, Fang?" Zhu's hesitation became more and more intense. "Yongchang, you say, is it possible that Ross 154 has that incident?" LV Yongchang's expression was stunned. He reacted quickly. After a moment of silence, he shook his head solemnly. "It is not certain yet. Our understanding of the universe is too shallow. Perhaps Ross 154 just had an extremely rare bright flash." Fang Zhu's face was full of sorrow. If Ross 154 also has an accident, do we have any alternative destinations?" The atmosphere became more and more solemn. LV Yongchang sighed and shook his head slowly. "At present, there are none. The Proxima Centauri have explored all the star systems within 15 light years, according to their data. In addition to the solar system, only Ross 154 can barely be regarded as a star system suitable for human development. The others are not very suitable for development for humans at present." Seeing the doubt in Fang Zhu's eyes, LV Yongchang explained softly, "In some star systems, the main stars are too violent, and humans can't survive at all. In other parts, either there are no solid planets suitable for habitation, or there are no gaseous planets that provide energy." At this point, he sighed again. "In short, I hope it won't be the worst result. Otherwise, we may need to be mentally prepared." Fang Zhu followed LV Yongchang and returned to his seat with a heavy face. "Academician Fang, what did Professor Lu say?" An academician beside him asked Fang Zhu. Several researchers cast expectant glances at him. Looking at the eyes of the people around him, Fang Zhu opened his mouth, but for a moment he didn't know how to start. LV Yongchang's voice was amplified by the microphone and rang in the main laboratory. "Everyone, let me say a few words." The attention of all the researchers was instantly attracted. Fang Zhu subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. He really didn't have the courage to say this bad news about the fate of mankind. "Everyone." LV Yongchang glanced at everyone. His expression was unusually serious. Sensing the abnormal expression of a chief, the hearts of all the researchers sank. The atmosphere in the laboratory suddenly became heavy. "We can't explain the changes in Ross 154. At present, we can't rule out the possibility that it has been hit by a higher civilization." As soon as the voice fell, a burst of discussion suddenly rang in the laboratory. Everyone's face showed a look of doubt. "Then, what should we do now?" A faint questioning voice came. "Isn't it our future destination?" LV Yongchang shrugged. "I just said the worst case scenario. Personally, I'm more inclined to believe that something has just happened inside it that we don't know about. After all, unlike the sun, Ross 154 is an extremely young star." A relaxed exhalation sounded all around. Ko Lianke reached out to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead, and a slightly relaxed smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. LV Yongchang said with ease, "Perhaps, in a few hours, we will be surprised to find that it has returned to its original appearance. Everyone, continue to observe. If there is any good news, remember to remind me." LV Yongchang even made a little joke. "I don't want to hear academician Fang's words again." The atmosphere in the laboratory suddenly became lively. As for LV Yongchang, when everyone focused their attention on the holographic projection again, he gave a hidden look to Ko Lianke in the distance. Then, He walked towards the door of the laboratory calmly. Seeing this scene, the smile that had just appeared on Ko Liankei's face disappeared instantly. 2 words flashed through his mind. It's broken. It seems that the situation is not as simple as Lu Yongchang just said. Ko Liankei naturally untied the electromagnetic absorption device on the chair and stood up calmly. Academician. Ko. A researcher on the side cast a puzzled look at him. Ko Liankei smiled with a relaxed face. I'm going to the toilet. I'm old and my heart can't bear it, Professor. Lu's words just now almost scared me to pee. The researcher who asked the question was stunned for a moment and then burst into laughter. The air in the laboratory was suddenly filled with a happy atmosphere. But no one saw it. The moment Ko Liankei turned his back, the relaxed smile on his face disappeared instantly. Chapter 313 Interstellar Probes and Radio Telescope Arrays. As soon as he left the laboratory door, Ko Liankei saw Lu Yongchang, who looked gloomy and frowned, staring at the holographic projection. Professor. Lu. Ko Liankei called softly. Lu Yongchang withdrew his gaze and turned to look at Ko Liankei. Old. Ko. Lu Yongchang's voice was extremely heavy. The problem is big. The muscles on both sides of Ko Liankei's cheeks trembled violently twice, and his lips trembled as he said, Professor, didn't you just say? Lu Yongchang slowly shook his head. That's just stabilizing. We just won the war, and everyone finally has some hope. If something happens again, I'm afraid. Ko Liankei understood. Lu Yongchang continued. At present, the situation of Ross 154 is very similar to that of the Sun and Proxima Centauri. It's like something is absorbing a lot of energy. As a result, the chromosphere experienced violent fluctuations, causing it to erupt in extremely abnormal brightness. Then, can we change to another star system? Ko Liankei asked in a low voice. Lu Yongchang shook his head. Ross 154 is the most suitable star system for human development within 15 light years. He added again, it was also our only option given our sailing capabilities. Ko Liankei's face suddenly turned ugly. The main reason for calling you out is for one thing. Lu Yongchang lowered his voice and said, build 2 sets of interstellar detectors. Ko Liankei was stunned. 2 groups. Is it to increase the success rate? He couldn't understand Lu Yongchang's approach. Not really. Lu Yongchang quickly shook his head. One of the groups does not require too many detection functions. It will be sent to the solar system and used as an information relay station. We can no longer expose our coordinates. If Ross 154 really has an advanced civilization, let it go to the solar system to find us. Ko Liankei suddenly realized it and nodded repeatedly. Okay, leave it to me. The Proxima Centauri civilization's interstellar detector manufacturing technology is very good. I estimate that the design drawings will be completed soon. Lu Yongchang pondered for a moment and then added again. That's right. Put nuclear torpedoes in every detector for me. In case of an accident, the self-destruction program will be started directly. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yongchang heard a burst of noise coming from the laboratory through the wall. If he heard correctly, it should be cheers. He frowned. What happens? As he spoke, he looked at the holographic image around him. When he saw the data that started to drop steadily, his pupils shrank sharply. This did he really fall for what he said casually? Lu Yongchang quickly turned around and walked towards the laboratory door. Professor. Ko Liankei's voice was somewhat relaxed. Will the interstellar probe still be built? Lu Yongchang paused and said, of course, we need to have a full understanding of the Ross 154 star system. The laboratory door slowly opened. Fang Zhu is still the first person to discover Lu Yongchang. His face was full of joy and he shouted loudly, Yongchang, you were right. Ross 154 has begun to recover. Lu Yongchang looked at the steadily descending curve in the holographic projection in disbelief. There were cheers and celebrations all around. But his heart felt cold. How abnormal. His intuition told him that things were definitely not that simple. Yongchang Fang Zhu noticed Lu Yongchang's unusually solemn expression, walked quickly to his side, and called in a low voice, "Is there any problem?" Hearing Fang Zhu's voice, his eyes moved slightly. "Not yet, let's see how the data changes first. I always feel that things won't be that simple." Half an hour later, looking at the data that returned to normal, Lu Yongchang took a long breath. He looked at the holographic projection directly in front of him in confusion, on which the gently fluctuating detection data was displayed. Was he really wrong? But the data fluctuation pattern just now. Lu Yongchang suppressed the confusion in his heart and walked towards Ko Lianke, who was standing aside. "Old Ko, the manufacturing task of interstellar probes is given top priority. You can put everything else aside." Ko Lianke nodded silently. After the explanation, Lu Yongchang still felt a little uneasy. 0. Add radio telescope array. Conduct round-the-clock detection of ROS 154. If any abnormality is found, report it to me immediately. 0. Responded quickly. "Okay, Professor." Time passes day by day. A new radio telescope array was also built and pointed at distant ROS 154. Under Zero's control, countless radio telescopes and optical telescopes receive information from 8.24 light years away at all times at the same time. 2 sets of interstellar detectors have also entered the manufacturing stage. Influenced by the manufacturing technology of Proxima Centauri civilization, these 2 sets of interstellar detectors were also made into spheres. The diameter of a single detector reaches 10 meters. Each set of detectors consists of 5 individual detectors. These 5 detectors have the same structure and the same function: to observe and detect stars at close range. At the same time, they can also detect the planetary conditions in the ROS 154 star system. This will lay a solid foundation for the next voyage of mankind. Under L.V. Yongchang's order, the manufacturing task of the interstellar detector and the radio telescope array was placed first. But ROS 154 in the distance was extremely stable. It was as if it was another star that exploded wildly not long ago. Looking at the observation data, that was no different from the previous ones. L.V. Yongchang slowly put down his heart. Perhaps it was really his feeling that was wrong. Half a month later, the surface of Proxima B. L.V. Yongchang had just passed a series of complex disinfection measures when he heard a shout from Mo Xiang. Professor, you are finally back." Looking at Mo Xiang with a pair of panda eyes in front of him, L.V. Yongchang was frightened and trembled all over. "Fuck, what did you do?" Mo Xiang looked at L.V. Yongchang, who looked innocent, with a face full of grief and indignation. "My dear Professor, thanks to you, my vacation is all ruined." L.V. Yongchang, I didn't. Don't talk nonsense." He waved his hands repeatedly and said 3 consecutive words of quality. Mo Xiang gritted his teeth and said, "Professor, tell me first, what is the next step of the photon computer?" L.V. Yongchang, he suddenly understood why Mo Xiang became like this. He looked at Mo Xiang sympathetically. Then shaked his head. "I'm afraid it's not possible now. The interstellar probe has just been manufactured." Mo Xiang, who was on Proxima B, didn't know what terrifying incident happened some time ago. At this time, his face was more and more angry. "Interstellar probe, is that thing as important as a computer?" Until L.V. Yongchang explained the whole thing to him, he barely suppressed his curiosity. Chapter 314 Maxim. A few hours later, after watching the 2 groups of probes go away in 2 directions, L.V. Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. One group of probes is targeting the solar system. The other group is heading to the ROS 154 star system. Thanks to the technological system of the Proxima civilization, Ko Liang successfully increased the maximum navigation speed of this group of probes to 20% of the speed of light. Because there are no people inside, the maneuverability of the probe has been greatly improved. Counting the acceleration and deceleration time, it is conservatively estimated that in 60 years, the probe heading to the ROS 154 star system will use the quantum long-distance communication device to send various detection data in the ROS 154 star system to the solar system point. Once the probe heading to the Ross 154 star system encounters an unexpected situation, the two groups of interstellar probes will simultaneously start the self-destruction program point within a few seconds. The nuclear torpedo placed in it will explode instantly. The high temperature plasma flow will turn the probe into ashes within a few milliseconds. This can prevent the coordinates of human beings from being leaked again. After withdrawing his eyes from the holographic projection, LV Yongchang turned his attention to Mozang on the side. Seeing Mozang's expectant look, LV Yongchang couldn't help but laugh. He could understand this feeling. After all, he would have similar feelings every time he entered the technology tree space. Ternary computer. LV Yongchang chuckled and said bluntly. A hint of surprise flashed in Mozang's eyes. He murmured in a low voice, "Ternary computer." As he said that, Mozang's face showed a trace of contemplation. "I remember that before the disintegration of the Soviet Union, there was research in this area." LV Yongchang glanced at Mozang in surprise. He was a little surprised by Mozang's speech. Logically speaking, the ternary computer has completely turned into the dust of history. Unexpectedly, to this day, there are still people who remember this thing. Mozang didn't notice LV Yongchang's expression. He frowned, as if he was recalling something. Suddenly, a look of realization appeared on his face, and he clapped his hands. "I remember it." LV Yongchang stared at Mozang, who was extremely excited. This. He hasn't said anything yet, and you understand everything, Professor. Zhang grabbed LV Yongchang's arm and said hurriedly, "Can you let Zero find a Soviet old man named Maxim in the home ship?" Faced with Mozang's request, LV Yongchang's face was full of confusion. "Home ship, yes, but you have to tell me the reason first." As he said, he shrugged helplessly. "I can't drag an old man who has been hibernating for hundreds of years out of nearly 4 billion people, just because of your words, right?" Zhang laughed and explained quickly, "When I was on Earth, my mentor and I visited Maxim. His father once participated in the research of ternary computers." Hearing this, LV Yongchang suddenly realized. No wonder Mozang knew this history that should have turned to dust. But soon, another new doubt came to his mind. Then, why is he in the home ship? Zhang was silent for a while, and slowly said, "Because he is just an ordinary person." Back then, the ternary computer project was banged by the binary computer, and Maxim's father died of depression. This left Maxim with extremely bad memories. He resolutely withdrew from the academic world and conducted research on ternary computers alone. Back then, my mentor and I chose to visit him in order to gain a deeper understanding of ternary computers. LV Yongchang nodded thoughtfully. So that's it. It's a pleasant surprise. If Maxim can really be found, the research on ternary computers may speed up a lot. Zero, look for Mr. Maxim in the home ship. LV Yongchang gave Zero an order without hesitation. To be honest, he didn't have much hope in his heart. For an ordinary person, the first thing to overcome is the age limit. If he remembered correctly, only ordinary people aged 65 and below can enter the home ship and get a chance to escape. Just 1 second after the voice fell, Zero's response rang out in the laboratory. "Professor, it has been found. At present, Maxim is hibernating in the home ship number 319. Do you want to execute the awakening procedure?" "Execute," Lu Yongchang said without hesitation. "Wait for him to wake up and tell him about the current research situation. When he recovers, take him to Proxima B. Near Proxima B, 500 starships with a length of 1,500 meters are quietly staying in the dark and silent universe. It carries almost the entire human civilization. Nearly 4 billion people. Among them, a light suddenly lit up in a corner of the interior of the number 319 home ship. A holographic projection slowly emerged on the surface of a silver-white streamlined hibernation cabin that had been sealed for hundreds of years. Name: Maxim. Hibernation start time: Earth calendar 2032.12.28. Right square bracket left square bracket. Original nationality: Soviet country. Age 65 years old. Wake up procedure in progress. One by one, messages slowly emerged in the holographic projection point. Then, the level of the pale yellow deep sea fluid in the hibernation chamber gradually dropped, revealing an old man with his eyes closed and a pale face point. When the deep sea fluid was completely drained, an injection of anti-hibernation hormone was injected into the old man. A few minutes later, sporadic signs of life appeared on the life monitoring device. As time went on, the signs of life gradually became stronger: heartbeat, breathing, blood oxygen saturation. One by one, the indicators gradually returned to normal levels. The old man's eyelids trembled slightly. The next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at everything around him blankly. He subconsciously took a breath. Cough. Cough cough. A holographic projection quietly appeared in front of him with his cough. Hello, Mr. Maxim. It is 2148.6.3 on the Earth calendar, 9:13 in the morning. Welcome to the Proxima Galaxy, Maxim. Subconsciously wanted to get up from the hibernation chamber, but his body obviously did not allow him to do such intense exercise. The feeling of weakness filled him with panic. In just a moment, his heart rate increased by 10%. Mr. Maxim, please relax. Zero quickly raised his voice and comforted the old man in front of him. A few minutes later, Maxim's mood gradually stabilized. So, I hibernated for 116 years. To be precise, it's 115.5 years. Zero corrected softly. Maxim's eyes showed some emotion. He didn't care about Zero's words, but just muttered to himself, it's really magical. Just slept for a while and came to 115 years later. Suddenly, Maxim seemed to realize something, and his eyes widened. Wait, you just said that we are in the Proxima Galaxy? Chapter 315. Time flies. Yes, Mr. Maxim. Zero confirmed the old man's question. At the same time, a robot delivered concentrated nutrients. After taking a lot of nutrients, Maxim's pale face gradually turned red. Then, do we have a place to live? His eyes were full of expectations. Zero shook his head, denied his question, and briefly introduced what had happened in the past 100 years. As an ordinary person, he didn't know about the Proxima civilization. But looking at the short lines of numbers in the holographic projection, a line of hot tears suddenly fell. That's a life. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, but through these words, Maxim can still imagine the tragic battle at that time. He raised his right hand and wiped the tears from his face. Then he turned his head and looked around. Why, you were awakened in advance. Zero interrupted Maxim's question. The research and development of the ternary computer needs your help. After hearing this familiar word, Maxim suddenly held his breath. Ternary computer, why do you know this? The old man was puzzled. Shouldn't this thing exist only in his memory? Is there anyone in the world who would remember this insignificant historical dust? Zero quickly explained. When he heard Mo Xiang's name, the old man showed surprise on his face. It turned out to be him. Maxim murmured to himself, I didn't expect that one day I would still hear the term ternary computer. Looking at the new computer technology in the holographic projection, the old man's eyes showed a bit of heat. Please tell Academician Mo Xiang for me. I'll report right away. Proxima B. In the office. LV Yongchang sat in a chair and slowly closed his eyes during the manufacturing process of the interstellar probe. Ko Liang proposed an extremely critical proposal to him. Humanity's current material technology is somewhat backward. The improved Hall thruster was actually dragged down by the strength of the material, resulting in its inability to perform as it should. This is undoubtedly a huge waste. Therefore, he decided to seek help from the technology tree system again. As for the ternary computer, with the addition of Maxim, he can be a hands-off boss for a while. More than 10 minutes later, Lu Yongchang slowly opened his tired eyes. Carbine. This is a hint he got. A carbon chain formed by carbon atoms gathered together. Its strength can reach more than 200 times that of steel. While having extremely high hardness, it also has extremely strong toughness. Under the premise of sufficient strength, the difficulty of obtaining raw materials is still very low. There is no doubt that this is the perfect material for the current human civilization. Point as for the synthesis method, through the system's overclocking of the brain. He also has some ideas through the double layer carbon nanotubes. With the help of the extremely fine gap between the two walls, the manufacturing of carbon acetylene chains is completed. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand and rubbed his swollen temple. Point after the swollen pain was slightly relieved, he buried his head and started calculating. Again. Point the idea is a point, but the whole system needs to be further improved. Point then, it is time for experiments and mass production. In short, the research and development of this new material will be his main work for some time in the future. 60 years later, in the full 60 years of development, the strength of human civilization has grown rapidly. The breakthrough in material technology has greatly improved the strength of human starships with the new Hall thruster and the more efficient fusion reactor. The maximum speed of the starship has been increased to 20% of the speed of light. As for the interstellar probe, the maximum speed has reached an astonishing 25% of the speed of light. Although the growth rate is not large, the difficulty has increased exponentially. Within 60 years, the ternary optical quantum computer was successfully developed, and the computing power of zero has also been further increased. Point thanks to this, the human fleet has more choices from the original 250 Golden Crow battleships. It gradually evolved into a fleet structure with battleships as the core and drone swarms as the main force. Point with the help of Zero's terrifying computing power, these drone swarms can burst out unparalleled combat power when communications are not affected. In addition, inspired by the Proxima battle, a new starship was added to the human fleet engineering ship under Zero's control. It can manufacture weapons, ammunition and various parts in real time. Point even several engineering ships combined can achieve on-site explosion of troops. Of course, this is based on sufficient resources in addition to the significant changes in the composition and number of the fleet. The weapon system has also made great progress in the past 60 years. Type 2nd ion cannon. Point mainly increased the weapon range and power. Type 2nd laser launcher compared with the first generation of laser weapons, it is more powerful and has a longer range. Point from the appearance, the first generation of laser weapons emits red lasers, while the second generation of laser weapons emit blue lasers. Type 2nd speed ray circle cannon. Point kinetic weapons will never be absent. Point compared to the past, the internal structure of the current shells is similar to that of nuclear torpedoes. In other words, when encountering or approaching enemy ships, these projectiles will turn into small plasma balls and carry out devastating blows on the armor of enemy ships. Of course, the most important weapon is the plasma weapon. Point high temperature plasma is confined by a small magnetic field and ejected with the help of electromagnetic effects to cause high damage to enemy ships, as a sign that the secondary civilization has initially mastered energy weapons. The power of plasma weapons far exceeds the above weapons, although the effective range is short. After a series of rigorous tests, a conclusion that makes people gasp is drawn. Only one attack is needed. The original flagship of human civilization will turn into space junk floating freely in the universe. In the simplest terms, if we fight with Proxima civilization again now. Point it is estimated that within 12 hours the fleet of Proxima b will be annihilated under the offensive of the human fleet. This is still under the condition of calculating the flight time of the starship. In addition to the significant changes in starships and weapons, the surface of Proxima b has also undergone great changes. A magnificent city cluster appeared on the surface of Proxima b. The city clusters are connected by specific giant channels. Each city can accommodate 100 million people. Point there are 20 such cities on Proxima b. Although it cannot accommodate all humans, it is much better than before. Point at least, human civilization has once again begun normal reproduction and education. In just 60 years, the total human population has risen to 6 billion. The injection of fresh blood has once again revitalized human civilization. There are also many new faces in the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament. Of course, many researchers who are too old, even if they have longevity enzymes, have not survived the 60 years of rapid development of mankind. Kang Zhengyang, Ding Zuming, Tang Wenshan, Chris, the death of academicians one by one has added a bit of sadness to Liu Yongchang's heart. Chapter 316 Split. The surface of Proxima Centauri B. Central City. Lu Yongchang looked at the yellow snow seen out the window with a bit of sigh in his eyes. It's getting colder. Proxima Centauri has also reached its final stage. From the side, Fang Zhu's voice sounded. Yes, it's time to move again. Right, Lu. Yongchang's eyes dimmed slightly. Human civilization had just gotten on the right track, but they had to order the migration again. This is the price of being weak. He sighed softly and whispered to the camera on the side. 0. Turn off the exterior projection. As soon as the words fell, the huge floor-to-ceiling windows and the scenery disappeared instantly. Instead, there were cold silver-white walls. How is the mobilization work going? Lu Yongchang pondered for a moment and asked again. Hearing the question, Fang Zhu's eyes showed a bit of bitterness. He shook his head slowly. Currently, 500 million people still don't want to leave Proxima Centauri. We tried a lot of things, but to no avail. Lu Yongchang's face looked a little ugly. 500 million people, already accounting for 8.3% of the total population. Fang Zhu quickly added, fortunately, most of these 500 million people are elderly. Hearing this, Lu Yongchang's face relaxed a little. Most of them are old people from Earth, right? Fang Zhu nodded. Surveys show that 400 million of them are elderly. After hundreds of years of hibernation, they no longer want to continue wandering. Although this is not the Earth, they have developed a certain affection for Proxima B after 60 years of living. So Lu Yongchang sighed again. What about the remaining 100 million people? Fang Zhu hesitated for a while and whispered, most of them are the new generation born on Proxima B. New generation? Lu Yongchang suddenly frowned. Well, why do you want to stay in this dying star system? Fang Zhu's face was full of helplessness. A large part of the reason lies with those 400 million elderly people. Of course, the sense of belonging to the place of birth also has a certain impact. How many mobilizations have been carried out? Lu Yongchang asked softly without much expression on his face. 3 times so far. Lu Yongchang slowly closed his eyes and took a deep breath. 1. Last mobilization. If you still don't want to leave, don't force it. Leave some supplies for them. With that gas giant planet, at least there won't be an energy crisis. Fang Zhu's expression was slightly shaken. Isn't this bad? They are all human beings. How can we just look at them like this? It's different from Earth. At this time, human civilization has the ability to take all humans on interstellar voyages. Lu Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu with a complicated expression. Nothing but everyone has his own ambition. Since they decided to enjoy the last warmth in this hotbed, then we will meet their needs. This is the most benevolent thing to do. Human civilization cannot stop its progress just because of a few people. Fang Zhu nodded silently and said nothing. Professor, the detector has completed its preliminary detection mission. Zero's voice broke the silent atmosphere in the office. Receiving data. Lu Yongchang's eyes lit up, and his tone suddenly became much lighter. It's been a long time coming. Let's go see what information the detector brings us. After saying that, he stood up and walked towards the office door. Astronomical observatory. Lu Yongchang's cheeks tightened, and he focused on looking at the progress bar on the holographic projection. His eyes were filled with a mixture of anticipation and fear. The hope is that the detector can bring them excellent intelligence. For example, resources are abundant. For example, there are no foreign enemies. The one who is frightened is naturally the main star of Ross 154. Although, in these 60 years, Ross 154 has not experienced any unexpected conditions, but for some reason, every time he thought of that scene 60 years ago, Lu Yongchang would feel an inexplicable sense of panic in his heart. Without any evidence that Ross 154 was suffering from a condition, he could only characterize it as a mental illness, perhaps, because of the demise of 2 consecutive star systems. The seeds of fear of the stars have been planted in his heart. How about find a chance to see Dr. Wen? Speaking of which, it seems that I haven't seen Dr. Wen for a while. The last time seemed to be 2 years ago. While researching plasma weapons, He successfully sent himself to the ward in charge of Dr. Wen Point, but thinking of the strange look Dr. Wen looked at his head, he quickly dismissed the thoughts in his mind. Point. Just as Lu Yongchang was thinking wildly, the progress bar in the holographic projection silently rose to 100%. A star map was clearly presented in front of everyone. Ross 154 outside a red fireball. There are 7 planets, large and small. Among them, there are 3 gas giant planets and 4 solid planets, and Lu Yongchang's goal is the second and third planets. The former is a solid planet. The latter is a gas giant planet. After mastering the construction technology of giant city clusters, the options for human settlements have increased a lot. Compared with the past. At this time, LV Yongchang only needs to focus on 2 aspects. On the one hand, gravity. The gravity of the settlement needs to be close to that of the Earth. This can ensure the normal growth and development of the new generation, and can also ensure that the bodies of the older generation will not have various abnormal conditions. On the other hand, as many resources as possible are needed. Water resources, mineral resources. This is naturally for convenience. It is impossible to build a city at that time, and the raw materials have to be transported far away, right? According to the observation data of the Proxima civilization, the gravity of this solid planet is about 90% of that of the Earth, and there is a small amount of water resources on it. It basically exists in the form of solid ice. Although it is not as rich as Proxima B and the Earth, it is not a big problem for a second level civilization. It is worth mentioning that this solid planet has a huge planetary ring. It is estimated that it was formed by the fragmentation of the satellite. Of course, these are the data of the Proxima civilization. The specifics still depend on the probes launched by humans. As he thought about it, he reached out and clicked on the holographic projection. The image of the second solid planet was instantly enlarged. Lines of data flashed in front of him quickly. Looking at the rapidly jumping data in front of him, the surprise in LV Yongchang's eyes gradually became stronger. According to preliminary tests, although there is not much water resources, the mineral resources are extremely rich. Again, although it is not as good as the Earth and Proxima B, compared with other solid planets, it is already a rich place. Professor Lu, this planet is really good. A young voice came from the side. Is this where we will live in the future? Chapter 317. Hebelin. LV Yongchang smiled and turned his head to look in the direction of the voice. A yellow-skinned black-haired young man had a look of amazement on his face. LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. Hebelin. One of the representatives of the new generation. The origin of the name is naturally Proxima Centauri. According to statistics, among the new generation born on Proxima Centauri B, names such as Proxima City, Siang, and Xingchen appear very frequently. Obviously, environmental factors account for a large proportion of this. Hebelin is also one of the many new generations with wisdom far beyond ordinary people. He went from an ordinary person to the door of the Academy of Sciences and became an interstellar astronomer in just 40 years. Yes, if there is no problem with the main star, this planet will be our future home. Unfortunately, since Ross 154 is a huge X-ray source, it is estimated that humans will still have to live in a closed urban agglomeration. LV Yongchang shook his head with regret. Hebelin shrugged and said nothing. It was hard for him to understand LV Yongchang's feelings. After all, he had been living in a huge, enclosed city cluster since the day he was born. He had only seen the Earth in holographic video materials and the so-called blue sky and white clouds. In addition to the video materials, most of the scenes he could see were cold-toned metal structures. Whether it was a city cluster or the various starships, it was the same. Apart from this, there was only the surface scenery of Proxima B projected from the outside. However, since Hebelin could remember, Proxima B had once again entered the Ice Age. The dim yellow sky, coupled with the dim yellow snow scene, looked like a large mud ball from a distance. He really didn't know why someone would like the environment outside the city cluster. LV Yongchang noticed Hebelin's emotions, but he didn't explain much. After all, before witnessing the scenery of the Earth with his own eyes, all words were pale. He sighed in his heart, retracted his gaze, and reached out again To point to the third planet. It was a gas giant planet. Similar to Saturn. It does not have a very strong magnetic field and contains a large amount of hydrogen and helium. 3. Whether in terms of distance or basic composition, it is a qualified energy supply station. After focusing on the second and third planets, LV Yongchang casually checked the rest of the planets. There were not too many surprises. It can only be said to be mediocre. Then he set his sights on the red fireball. Ross 154. The key detection object of the probe. Ross 154 star system. 5 probes flew towards the main star in a scattered manner under the light of the main star. The light of the Hall thruster at the tail of the probe appeared extremely dim. As time went on, they were getting closer and closer to the fireball. With a tight protective layer, the probe successfully flew near Ross 154. In the holographic projection, real-time detection data poured down like a waterfall. Among all the people present, only LV Yongchang and Hebelin kept up with the speed of data refresh. It seems that there is nothing unusual. Hebelin wiped the sweat from his forehead and said with some difficulty, "It is completely consistent with the observation data of Proxima Centauri. In 60 years, if it was hit by an advanced civilization, there should be some abnormal phenomena." LV Yongchang still did not speak. He stared at the holographic projection in front of him. More than 10 minutes later he breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed, no abnormal conditions were found. 0. Controller probe to hit Ross 154. LV Yongchang said in a deep voice. He needs more accurate detection data. Even if a probe is lost, it doesn't matter. Near Ross 154. Under Zero's control, a probe quietly changed its trajectory around the main star and rushed directly to the sea of fire on the surface of the star. As the distance between the two got closer and closer, the thermal insulation material on the surface of the probe began to melt rapidly. At the same time, various detection instruments were running at full power. Strings of data were sent in the direction of the solar system. Until the probe turned into a ball of fire. A violent explosion spread across the surface of Ross 154. That was the effect of a nuclear torpedo explosion. But for such a huge star, it was like a speck of dust falling on a person without causing any ripples. Get ready to start the migration plan. LV Yongchang looked at the data in front of him with a faint smile on his face. Ross 154 is very healthy. It is a young star. Perhaps this is a reason why it had an abnormal situation 60 years ago. Humans, their understanding of the universe is still too shallow. LV Yongchang sighed silently in his heart. Let's go. He turned and called Fang Zhu. Complete all preparations within 2 years. In 2210, we set off. 8.24 light years away. Around Ross 154. 4 detectors tirelessly circled it for detection. In order to prevent accidents, such detection will continue until humans arrive at the Ross 154 star system. The dark red Ross 154 quietly released its energy to the surroundings, bringing a touch of warmth to this remote place. Suddenly, a gray appeared on its surface. The gray quickly spread and stretched towards the 4 probes around Ross 154. A few minutes later the gray matter attracted into the dark red star. Everything returned to normal. And the 4 probes, as if nothing had happened, still maintained their original trajectory and quietly orbited Ross 154. At the same time. In the past 60 years, the human fleet has been updated. There are 3,000 starships quietly parked outside Proxima B. Among these starships, an extremely large starship is particularly eye-catching, with a length of 5,000 meters. It is the new generation flagship of human civilization. As a flagship, it naturally inherited the name of the previous generation flagship, Earth. Surrounding it are 10 secondary flagships with a length of 3,000 meters. On the outer edge are ordinary starships with a length of 500 to 1,500 meters. Among them are home ships, engineering ships and battleships. On the outermost edge of the 3,000 starships are densely packed millions of small exploration satellites. These exploration satellites will take the lead and surround the entire fleet to create a preliminary exploration network with a radius of 1 AU. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318, Relocation of Nail Households. A week later, the surface of Proxima Centauri B. City number 3. Unlike city number 1, as a city where ordinary people live, in order to ensure the quality of life, the design of most areas remains highly similar to that of Earth cities. Some street trees were also planted on both sides of the road. I have to say that under Zero's management, these street trees are growing really well. On the streets, in addition to leisurely pedestrians, there are even some vendors selling various snacks. Take a look. Authentic Xianjian specialty cannabis flowers, changsha. Stinky tofu. If it doesn't stink, you'll be compensated. The shouts came and went. If you just look at the street in front of you, you might even feel like you're still on Earth. But if you raise your head slightly and look towards the sky, you can quickly find something abnormal. There is no blue sky, no white clouds, some are just intricate steel frame structures and various macro control devices. Renfeng walked through the crowd with a blank expression, ignoring the various greetings from the vendors around him. Wash burger. 8-piece set, now only 29.9 credits. When he heard this sentence, Renfeng's steps suddenly stopped. The confusion in his eyes gradually dissipated, and he turned his head stiffly in the direction of the sound. I saw a middle-aged man looking at me with a smile. Would you like one? Renfeng's face gradually twisted. Boss, how do you sell this laxative? The smile on the middle-aged man's face gradually disappeared. What laxative? What I sell is hamburgers. Young people, don't talk nonsense. Renfeng's expression became even weirder. He stared hard at the middle-aged man in front of him and asked word for word, then why did I stay in the toilet for 3 hours after eating your hamburger? Middle-aged man. Ahem. Seeing the pedestrians around him casting doubtful glances at him, the middle-aged man quickly grabbed Renfeng's shoulders. Young man, this is it. I'll give you another hamburger set. Please stop talking nonsense. Okay. Renfeng. He seriously suspected that the middle-aged man in front of him was trying to kill him. Seemingly seeing the disbelieving expression on Renfeng's face, the middle-aged man's expression quickly changed. A few seconds later, he sighed deeply and said to Renfeng with a grimace, brother, the migration plan is about to start in the last few days. Just don't mess with me, okay? If I pay one more fine, I will have no money at all. After hearing the middle-aged man's words, the anger on Renfeng's face suddenly disappeared, replaced by deep confusion. Never mind. Renfeng waved his hand and walked forward with a blank look on his face. Migration plan. Migration plan again. Thinking of the staff who had mobilized 3 times from home some time ago, Renfeng sighed deeply. I really don't know why these people want to leave this city. Isn't it nice to live like this? As for the middle-aged man, looking at the back of Renfeng who suddenly felt emo, he scratched his head in confusion. But soon he put the matter behind him and continued shouting, take a look. The Watson Berger. After passing through the crowded downtown area, Renfeng came to a slightly quiet residential area. Zhao Feng, are you back? On the way, an aunt saw Renfeng and greeted him with a smile. It seems like you have another guest at home. Renfeng's heart tightened, but there was no clue on his face. He smiled and nodded to the aunt. Okay, I'll go back right now. As he spoke, he quickened his pace a little and hurried towards his home. As soon as he opened the door, Renfeng heard the familiar voice coming from inside. Proxima Centauri is a star destined to die. Renfeng sighed slightly. They are also the mobilizers of the relocation plan. Mom, I'm back. Renfeng shouted loudly. Renfeng's call quickly attracted the attention of several people in the living room. Among them, a woman who looked to be in her 40s quickly stood up and waved to him. Zhao Feng, you are finally back. Come on. This comrade is here to see you. Renfeng sighed softly and dragged his feet toward the living room with difficulty. When a middle-aged man in uniform saw Renfeng, His eyes lit up slightly. He stood up quickly, walked quickly to Renfeng, stretched out his hands, and held Renfeng's right hand. "Hello Renfeng, maybe you don't know me, let me introduce myself first." Renfeng curled his lips and pulled out his right hand mercilessly. "Aren't you just here to persuade me to join the migration plan?" The man in uniform twitched the corner of his mouth and said with an embarrassed look on his face, "That's true." Renfeng waved his hand. "No need to waste your efforts. I will not participate in the migration plan." Hearing this, the man in uniform showed a bit of anxiety in his eyes. "But your parents have chosen to participate in the migration plan, and you stay here alone." Renfeng interrupted the man in uniform and said in a bad tone, "Who said I would stay here alone?" As soon as he finished speaking, two slightly childish voices sounded in the living room. "We also want to stay here. Wherever my brother goes, we will go." The uniformed man turned to look. Two children about 10 years old jumped off the sofa with smiles on their faces and came to Renfeng. The uniformed man cast a look of help to the middle-aged couple beside him. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. The middle-aged couple did not show any unexpected expression on their faces. Father Ren sighed deeply and said softly, "Comrade, can you please talk to me for a moment?" Then he walked directly out of the house. The uniformed man was stunned for a moment and quickly followed the footsteps of Father Ren. "It's very strange, isn't it, Father?" Ren's slightly hoarse voice came from the front. The uniformed man nodded with a wry smile. "It's indeed a little unexpected. We haven't encountered such a situation before. Generally speaking, it's the children who are willing to migrate, but the parents are unwilling to migrate." Father Ren stopped his steps, turned to look at the uniformed man, and sighed deeply again. "Speaking of which, this matter should be blamed on my husband and me." The uniformed man did not speak, but cast a puzzled look at Father Ren. "You should have noticed that the two children are closer to Renfeng." The uniformed man nodded. "That's true." Before Renfeng came back, the two children didn't even smile. Ren's father said to himself, "Renfeng, now 25 years old, has lived with his grandfather since he was a child. As for the two younger children, they have also lived with their grandfather since they were born. On weekdays, they are closest to Renfeng. It was not until the last few months that we took the three of them back." So, Chapter 319 Migration. The man in uniform suddenly realized. He found the point of the problem and quickly asked, "What about their grandfather?" Father Ren twitched the corners of his mouth and looked into the distance. "In city number 4, currently living alone. The old man is from the earth, nostalgic. It's not easy to have a home, so naturally I don't want to leave. It's just, Renfeng is a sentimental guy. He wanted to take care of his grandpa, so he refused to participate in the relocation plan." Those two children. As he spoke, Father Ren smiled bitterly and shook his head. "What can a 10-year-old child know? All he knows is to follow his brother." The uniformed man frowned. "Now, things are getting difficult. What do you think about this?" The man in uniform asked in a low voice. "Should you let them stay here with the old man, or?" Father Ren suddenly became excited. "Are you kidding? Who doesn't know that Proxima Centauri is about to go out? If you can survive here for 100 years, how can you stay here for 500 years? Don't get excited." The man in uniform comforted him softly. "I'm sorry." Ren's father gradually calmed down, lowered his head and apologized. "I hope you can persuade him well and let Renfeng participate in the migration plan. We just have these 3 children." The man in uniform nodded silently. "This is our mission. What's more, the superiors attach great importance to these new generations who are unwilling to migrate. You also know how important these new blood are to civilization in the interstellar era. I'll try my best." The next day. The man in uniform came to city number 4. According to the address given by Ren's father, he came to a remote community. Looking at the closed door in front of him, he took a deep breath. After putting on a kind smile on his face, he reached out and knocked on the door. "Who am old voice came from among them. Then, a sound of footsteps getting closer and closer sounded at the door. The steps stopped. The man in uniform hurriedly said, "Hello, I'm the street director of the Human Migration Project." Click. The door opened slowly, and behind the door was an old man with white hair. The old man frowned and looked at the man in uniform and asked in a low voice, "People who are engaged in migration, haven't you been here a few days ago?" As he spoke, the old man's face was full of vigilance. Could he be a liar? "Old man, I'm not engaged in relocation." The man in uniform was speechless and quickly explained, "I'm the person in charge of the street. I mainly mobilize people to participate in the relocation plan." The old man waved his hand. "It's not about migration. Besides, I don't think you are a good person." As he spoke, he stretched out his wrinkled hand and tremblingly pressed a red button next to the doorman in uniform. "Old man, don't be impulsive." He took out an ID from his pocket and stopped the old man in front of him. "Look, I have an ID." The old man pressed the button with one hand, took the ID with the other, and glanced at it suspiciously. "Ah, you so good at making fake certificates now, man in uniform." "Uncle, I called you uncle." The man in uniform said, dumbfounded. "Sir, think about it carefully. Have you ever encountered a liar since you came to Proxima Centauri?" The old man nodded silently. "Yes." The man in uniform was shocked. "What? When did it happen?" "Impossible. All cities are under the management of Zero. Even the dignitary members cannot seek personal gain with power. Is there any god who can escape Zero's pursuit?" The old man looked at the man warily and slowly said two words. "Now, man in uniform." Finally, with the police's proof, the old man finally believed the identity of the man in uniform. "So, what are you doing? Migration? Why are you looking for me again?" The man in uniform weakly corrected him. "Uncle, we are not engaged in migration." "I am." "Forget it. Just think that I'm a migration agent. I came to you mainly about your grandson." The old man's expression instantly became serious. "Zhao Feng, what happened to him?" The man in uniform was stunned. "You don't know." When he heard that it was about his grandson, the old man suddenly became excited. He patted the table in front of him impatiently. "What do I know? What happened to Zhao Feng?" The uniformed man nodded thoughtfully. More than 10 minutes later. "Bastard." The old man gasped and slammed the table in front of him. "This little brat dares to mess around with such a big thing. I'm an old guy who's mostly buried in the ground. What can I do to keep you company?" With that said, he reached out and opened the holographic projection on the side, found Ren Feng's contact information with trembling hands, and pressed it without hesitation. 3 days later, watching Ren Feng board the maglev train heading to city number 4, Ren's father and Ren's mother sighed deeply. The man in uniform said apologetically to the two of them, "I'm sorry, Ren Feng, father." Ren shook his head slowly, looked down at his youngest son and daughter beside him, and asked softly, "This may be the best outcome." After a moment of silence, he looked at the uniformed man again. A glimmer of hope shone through his dim eyes. "Will you still persuade Ren Feng?" The uniformed man hesitated for a moment, and finally shook his head. Ren's father's eyes completely dimmed. "Sorry." The uniformed man apologized again. "According to the instructions of the Academy of Sciences, the migration plan will be officially launched soon. This is the last mobilization." Ren's father and mother did not speak, but just looked up at the maglev train in the distance silently. Such scenes continue to occur throughout the Proxima B city cluster. Under the last mobilization order, some of the new generation chose to join the migration plan. Of course, more people still maintain their original choices. Alas, LV Yongchang looked at the final statistical results presented in the holographic projection and sighed deeply. There's still 80 million new generations who choose to stay here. Unfortunately, after this separation, we are two civilizations. As he said, LV Yongchang's eyes revealed some regret. "Zero, how long can they last after we leave?" he muttered to himself. After a short wait, Zero gave his answer. 1,000 years. Only 1,000 years. LV Yongchang lowered his eyes and sighed softly. "Yes, this is still under ideal conditions. Zero quickly gave a series of simulation data. LV Yongchang glanced at the holographic projection in front of him. The calculation process is very rigorous. It is also ideal. After a moment of silence, LV Yongchang shook his head helplessly and said in a deep voice, Zero, start the migration plan. Starting tomorrow, all personnel will enter hibernation in batches in order. Chapter 320 Human fleet sets sail. 2 years later, outside Proxima b, 3,000 starships are ready to go. And the exploration satellites surrounding it have already taken the lead in flying into the distance. In the dim universe, dense blue dots of light suddenly flashed. Earth Command Center in the huge holographic projection directly in front. An expanding detection network is taking shape. LV Yongchang stood on a high platform behind the command center with a serious expression, carefully checking the data in the holographic projection. Home ship is ready. All personnel have entered hibernation. Engineering ship is ready. TOT material reserve ship is ready. Ring fleet detection network deployment completed. No abnormal conditions within 1 AU. Ready to set sail at any time. One green light after another lit up in the holographic projection. LV Yongchang took a deep breath, turned his head to look at the dirty ice ball outside the porthole, and issued the last order. Human fleet, set sail. Target, Ross 154 star system. As soon as the words fell, Zero's voice sounded immediately. The order has been confirmed. The route has been planned. The fleet will enter the forward 4 state in 15 minutes. All stranded personnel are requested to enter the deep sea cabin immediately. LV Yongchang pressed the switch of the electromagnetic absorption device beside him and stood up from his chair. Professor, see you in 60 years. Beside him, Zhao Zij's voice came. LV Yongchang was stunned for a moment, then smiled and nodded. See you in 60 years. As he said, he walked towards the deep sea cabin at the back of the command center after a familiar series of procedures. Lu Yongchang slowly closed his eyes. Before closing his eyes stayed at the end of the star map. Ross 154. I hope it can provide a safe haven for humans. A faint thought flashed in his mind. The next moment, his consciousness completely fell into darkness. A few minutes later, when it was detected that everyone had entered hibernation, the lights in the starship went out one by one. At the same time, the hall thrusters at the tail of each starship gradually brightened. Proxima B. A remote corner of city number 4. Renfeng stared at the holographic projection in front of him in a daze. On the projection, there was a real-time picture sent back by the satellite. It was as if 3,000 small suns rose in the deep and dark universe. At this moment, even the light of Proxima Centauri seemed extremely dim. Zhao Feng. An old voice came from the side. Has the human fleet set off? Ren Feng turned his head to look at his grandfather. The old man squinted his eyes and reached out to grope on the coffee table beside him. Ren Feng chuckled, stood up and helped the old man get his reading glasses, and said softly, yes, the fleet has set off. You too. I told you a long time ago that a small operation in the medical cabin can cure presbyopia, but you just don't believe it. The old man smiled and reached out to take the glasses, put them on the bridge of his nose, and then waved his hand. Hey, how can you talk like that? I feel uncomfortable when I think of a robot entering my body. Anyway, I think my eyes are fine. The old man muttered softly. Renfeng smiled bitterly and shook his head and no longer explained the difference between nanorobots and ordinary robots. Zhao Feng. The old man was silent for a while and then said, I stayed in this dying star system just to accompany me. An old man who is half buried in the ground. Life in the future will not be as comfortable as before. Do you regret it? Ren Feng's breathing was slightly choked. Then he smiled with relief. Maybe I regretted it at first, but now I've let it go. It's not bad to live a plain life like this. What's more, aren't there 80 million new generations who choose to stay in the Proxima galaxy? Besides, before leaving, Professor Lu left a weak artificial intelligence here. In addition, we can always seek help from Zero or others through long-distance communication, and there are various types of robots, so the quality of life will not be too bad. Looking at Renfeng's confident look, the old man stopped talking, but a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. Really? Is there such a comfortable thing From Earth to Proxima b, he has experienced too many things in his life, from the rise of Xiago, the establishment of the human union, to escaping from Earth. He has experienced almost everything personally. It is precisely because of this that the old man knows very well that the development of human civilization will never be smooth. In the event of danger, will the human fleet still have the energy to take care of the sub-civilization with no development potential? Thinking of this, the old man sighed again and glanced at his grandson beside him with extremely complicated eyes. He had already told his grandson about all this, but it was useless to persuade him. The old man shook his head slightly and put the thought in his mind behind him. Whatever children and grandchildren have their own blessings, and it is not the turn of an old man with half of his body buried in the ground to speak about this matter. Renfeng, who was standing aside, obviously did not notice the subtle expression on the old man's face. At this time, his eyes were still focused on the holographic projection in front of him. Looking at the 3000 bright blue light spots in the endless deep sky. 60 years later. 0.01 light years away from the Ross 154 star system. A fleet with a bumpy surface slowly passed by. Although it did not suffer any attacks during the voyage, the originally bright and beautiful outer shell of the fleet looked particularly shabby under the influence of cosmic rays and tiny meteoroids in the center of the fleet. Inside the flagship, Earth, in the central computer room, various indicator lights flashed rapidly. Then, starting from the computer room, the lights inside the hull gradually lit up. In the command center, the holographic projection automatically unfolded. A star map slowly emerged. Distance 0.01 light years, 632.4 AU, has arrived at the preset awakening area. Awakening program is being started. The first batch of awakened personnel are awakening at the same time. In the Ross 154 star system. 0.01 light years away. 4 probes are still orbiting the dark red Ross 154 to perform detection tasks. In the past 60 years, they have been tirelessly sending main star detection data to the solar system. After the transfer, these data were transmitted to 0. According to the program preset by LV Yongchang, once Ross 154 shows any abnormal movement, 0 will immediately and unconditionally execute the deceleration program and wake up all the personnel in Earth. But fortunately, no abnormal data has been received in the past 60 years in the detection of the 4 detectors. Ross 154 is operating normally, spreading its own warmth to this dark and cold universe. But with the arrival of the fleet, a grey shadow appeared again in the normally operating Ross 154. The grey shadow disappeared in a flash. The detector still transmits normal data to 0. Chapter 321 Ross 2. Cough, cough, cough. Inside the Earth. As the hatch of the deep sea cabin opened, a violent coughing sound suddenly resounded throughout the starship. Fang Zhu, how is your health? The holographic projection automatically unfolded in front of Fang Zhu, and LV Yongchang's concerned question came from the loudspeaker beside him. Cough, cough. I have left the cabin and am coughing. Cough. Looking at Fang Zhu in the spacesuit and coughing constantly in the picture, LV Yongchang and the command center chuckled. Since you are in good condition, report to the command center as soon as possible. We will arrive at our destination in 1 month. While coughing, Fang Zhu raised his right hand and made an internationally used friendly gesture to the camera beside him. An hour later, Fang Zhu stepped into the command center with a frivolous step. TSK, your body is not good, perhaps, because they are about to arrive at their new home. LV Yongchang is in a good mood, and even his tone is full of teasing. Look, who is like you, me or Zaozuji? Fang Zhu rolled his eyes unhappily. I won't say anything about Zaozuji. After all, he is from the military, so it's normal for him to have a better physique. But you, I'm confused. Why is your physical fitness so much better than mine? Faced with Fang Zhu's doubts, LV Yongchang shrugged and said with a relaxed look, maybe it's talent. Fang Zhu, looking at Fang Zhu's speechless expression, LV Yongchang laughed. You have to seize the time in this month and exercise more in the gravity cabin. Don't let others help you get off the starship when you land. Fang Zhu smiled and nodded. Point this point. LV Yongchang didn't need to remind him point after all. It was he who personally proposed waking up a month earlier and conducting restorative training in the gravity chamber. Okay, let's get back to business. LV Yongchang restrained his smile and looked at the star map presented in the holographic projection. According to the information received by Zero, there has been no abnormal phenomenon in the Ross 154 star during the 60 years of sailing. According to the detection data, the interference of advanced civilizations can basically be ruled out. At present, a probe has left the Ross 154 orbit. It is expected to reach the synchronous orbit of Ross 2 soon, and then we can observe this planet in real time. LV Yongchang's words made everyone present feel a little bit of expectation. New planet, new home, a place without any worries for human civilization at this time. This is already heaven, Professor. The probe has successfully arrived near Ross 2. Zero's voice sounded in the command center at the same time. The holographic projection picture in front of him changed quietly. A solid planet with a huge planetary ring slowly rotates on it. Ross 2 under the light of the main star. The entire planet presents a yellowish brown hue. There are a few white spots in the yellowish brown hue. That is water resources in the form of solid ice. It can be seen at a glance at this. Ross 2 is in no way comparable to the Earth. At least, in terms of water resources, the two have a huge gap. However, this thing does not have much impact on the current human civilization. Therefore, everyone did not focus on it. Zero, let the probe land on star 2. After Lu Yongchang pondered for a moment, he gave the order. In order to better detect planetary resources, these interstellar probes were given the ability to land on planets and conduct ground surveys at the beginning of their design. Received. As Zero's voice sounded, the picture in the holographic projection suddenly moved. Looking at the gradually enlarged Ross 2, all the researchers secretly sweated. Time passed by. The probe first passed the planetary ring surrounding Ross 2. With the help of the camera, LV Yongchang saw the composition of the starring point in addition to some small gravel. There are also a lot of ice debris. It's a good place to mine. LV Yongchang looked at the various data sent by the probe and muttered to himself. After crossing the planetary ring, the probe plunged into the atmosphere of Ross 2. The previous article said that this planet has no atmosphere, and this is a modification. In addition, the description of this part of the content in the previous article has been modified, considering the low surface temperature of this planet. LV Yongchang specially chose the equator as the landing site. Under the influence of the atmosphere, the camera vibrated violently. But soon, the picture gradually stabilized. Ross to the blue sky. Under the light of Ross 154, which is about to set, a white belt appears in the center of the sky. That is the planetary ring surrounding Ross 2. The camera moves down. The earthy yellow land is undulating, with hills, basins, mountains, and rivers. All kinds of terrain are visible at a glance. On some high mountains, you can even see white snow. At the end of the site is a snow white glacier. LV Yongchang has even thought about sending robots to the glacier to collect ice to replenish water resources. As the detector continued to descend, the ground image gradually became clearer. Suddenly, he held his breath. Is that liquid water? Perhaps because it is near the equator and the temperature is high. Under the shooting of the high precision camera, or thin, long, winding river is clearly presented in front of everyone. The detector descended further. A terrain on the right side of the picture instantly attracted LV Yongchang's attention. Surrounded by mountains on three sides, there is a plain in the middle. In the center of the plain is a small lake. In the center of the lake, there are several lake islands on the left side of the plain. A wide river flows slowly. That's it. LV Yongchang's eyes showed some joy. The address of the central city is here. As he said, he recorded the coordinates displayed in the detector. Everyone present nodded in agreement with LV Yongchang's proposal. Although there may be native microorganisms in the water, this is no longer a problem for current human civilization. The detector slowly landed. 3 brackets popped out from the side and supported it steadily. Then, the side hatch of the spherical detector slowly opened. A detection vehicle loaded with precision detection instruments slowly drove out of it. Atmospheric composition: nitrogen 97%, carbon monoxide 1.8%, carbon dioxide 0.6%, water vapor 0.4%, surface pressure 85 kPa, chapter 322 bet. Earth Command Center accurate data from the detectors were presented in the holographic projection in front of them. LV Yongchang noticed one of the datasets at the first time, carbon monoxide concentration 1.8%, so high. LV Yongchang's eyes showed some surprise. There is actually a small amount of carbon monoxide in the Earth's atmosphere. However, its concentration is extremely low, so low that it can be ignored. However, once the concentration rises, this colorless and odorless toxic gas will show extremely strong toxicity. For example, when the concentration of carbon monoxide reaches 0.06%. It can cause poisoning in 1 hour. When its concentration reaches 0.32%, humans will fall into a coma and die within 30 minutes from this. We can see how amazing the concentration of carbon monoxide on ROS2 is. It's a bit high indeed. Aside, Fang Zhu frowned and whispered, "It seems that this is another world that does not welcome humans. Perhaps there is no life on this planet." LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows and interrupted Fang Zhu's words. "That's not necessarily true." Fang Zhu stared at LV Yongchang in a daze. "Are you sure?" Then, he turned his head and looked at the data in the holographic projection again. After confirming that it was correct, he shook his head repeatedly and said, "Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nitrogen is too stable. There is no oxygen, and the concentration of carbon monoxide is so high. I don't believe that life can be born in this ghost place." LV Yongchang smiled in the corner of his eyes. "How about making a bet?" Fang Zhu nodded subconsciously. "Let's make a bet." As he spoke, his voice suddenly became a little smaller, and a trace of guilt appeared on his face. He frowned tightly and turned his head to look at the holographic projection again. After confirming the data again, some confidence emerged in his heart. "Let's bet." "What's the bet?" The smile in LV Yongchang's eyes became even bigger. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's bet on the amount of training. The loser, in the next month, the amount of training in the gravity cabin will be doubled." As he said that, LV Yongchang glanced at Ko Liang on the side. "Also, Leo Ko, don't forget the chicken leg rice you owe me." Ko Liang, "Professor, please don't play with me." Ko Liang begged for mercy. "Where can I get you the chicken leg rice from Sandaokao University?" LV Yongchang shrugged. "There is none now, but maybe there will be in the future." After that, he looked at Fang Zhu again. "What do you think? Do you accept it?" Facing LV Yongchang's provocation, Fang Zhu gritted his teeth. "Accept it. I don't believe that life can be born in such an environment. Just wait to cry in the gravity cabin." The bet was established. LV Yongchang raised the corners of his mouth, revealing a mysterious smile. "Don't forget, in the beginning, the Earth also had no oxygen. Besides, the concentration of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere is not low." Fang Zhu's face froze. "Is there such a thing?" This thing really touched his blind spot in knowledge. LV Yongchang pursed his lips at Hebilin on the other side. "Well, if you don't believe it, ask." Fang Zhu turned his head stiffly and looked in the direction of Hebilin. The answer he got was naturally affirmative. "It's over." Or thought flashed through Fang Zhu's mind. Thinking that he would face double the amount of gravity cabin training next. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. "The result is not out yet. I still have a chance to turn the tables." Hearing this, Lu Yongchang's smile became even bigger. "Zero, where is the rover?" While everyone was talking, the rover on ROS2 had already arrived at its destination, the winding river. "Professor, the data from the rover has been transmitted back." LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu with a half smile. "Zero, show the image data." As soon as the voice fell, the image sent back by the rover's camera appeared in the holographic projection. Looking at the endless river in the picture, LV Yongchang's eyes showed some emotion. When viewed from high in the air, the river looked like a thin ribbon. But when it was really in front of us, the scale of the river was quite large. "Zero, how wide is this river?" LV Yongchang asked casually. "The average width is 82 kilometers, and the widest part is 230 kilometers." The Width of this section of the river is 67 kilometers. Ling responded meticulously. LV Yongchang's face lit up. For a river of this size, it can be basically determined that it is not a seasonal river. The so-called seasonal river refers to a river that is greatly affected by seasonal factors. Once the dry season arrives, the river will even stop flowing and dry up. The formation of early life requires a relatively stable environment. This river can undoubtedly meet this need. In contrast to LV Yongchang's expression, Fang Zhu's expression became increasingly gloomy. LV Yongchang continued to ask, what about the depth? There is no detection data yet. LV Yongchang nodded gently and gave an order. Take some river water, send it back to the detector, and look at it under a microscope. Received. In the holographic projection, a mechanical arm stretches out from the left side of the camera and extends straight into the slightly turbid river water. Tens of seconds later, sampling completed. Yongchang nodded with satisfaction and looked at Fang Zhu again, who looked at Hen. How about it? Do you want to continue this bet? Surrender is half the battle. You just need to increase the amount of exercise by 50%. Fang Zhu struggled for a long time and said viciously, continue. I will not give in before the test results come out. A trace of regret flashed in Yongchang's eyes. To be honest, he was not sure about the test results. It's just that, with his current physique, it is not difficult to double the amount of exercise. The wait is long, Professor. The test results are out. Zeros. Avatar appeared beside Yongchang and said softly. Yongchang's expression perked up and he asked urgently, how is it? Is there anything in the water? Fang Zhu, who was on the side, also cast an expectant look at Ling. Under microscope observation, a small number of single-celled organisms were found in the water. Zero announced the result of the bet in a calm tone. Yongchang laughed loudly and said, ha 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 ha. Zero. Take out the test report. When the test report appeared on the holographic projection, the last glimmer of hope in Fang Zhu's heart was extinguished. Don't forget, starting from today, your training volume will be doubled. Yongchang looked at the test report and teased Fang Zhu, who looked pale. On the other side, Ko Liangke looked at Fang Zhu sitting blankly on the chair and shook his head with regret. What a good young man. Why can't you think of making a bet with Yongchang? Chapter 323 Cyanobacteria like life. The bet is just a small episode. The focus is naturally still on the water body detection report in front of us. After all, this is related to the safety of the human population. After carefully reviewing the report, Yongchang breathed a long sigh of relief. In several samples, only one single-celled organism with a simple structure was detected. It seems that life on this planet has just begun to evolve. Yongchang said in a relaxed tone. This is undoubtedly good news. Normally, the threat of these primitive beings is not high. To be on the safe side, Yongchang ordered more detectors to be sent to Ross 2.1 month later. 3,000 starships with dilapidated surfaces arrived at their destination. Under Zero's precise control, these starships followed the orbit of the Roster star and moved around Ross 154. During this 1-month voyage, the remaining 3 interstellar probes are still moving around Ross 154. At the same time, 90% of the optical telescopes and radio telescopes of the human fleet are pointed at this young star. The Roster star is also surrounded by hundreds of satellites with different functions under intensive observation for a month. Neither Ross 154 nor Roster showed any abnormalities. This also made Yongchang completely let go of his worries. He believed that a normal advanced civilization with the ability to attack stars would never deliberately hide its whereabouts for a mere second-level civilization. This is like facing a group of ants. No one will hide in a corner to hide traces of their existence. Just to give the ants a corner kill. Tomorrow, land on Ross 2, looking at the solid planet with star rings outside the porthole. Yongchang showed an expectant smile on his face. The next day, hundreds of Zhuanvta ships sailed out of the Earth port and headed straight for the Roster star in the distance. On this day, Ross 2, which had been lonely for countless years, welcomed its first batch of tourists. The high temperature brought by the whole thruster formed Strange lines in the upper atmosphere point in the blue sky. Hundreds of rainbows appeared. The Zhuan-2 fleet crossed thousands of mountains and rivers and finally arrived at the city construction point selected by Lu Yongchang. Point the hatch opened slowly. Point scientific researchers, robots, material transport vehicles filed out. Point Lu Yongchang was wearing a spacesuit and stamped his feet vigorously, feeling the touch of the solid earth. Point it feels slightly different from the land of Proxima Centauri. Point due to the influence of various organisms. The texture of Proxima Centauri's land is more like that of the Earth. Point the land on Ross 2 made him feel like he was back on Mars. Let's go. Lu Yongchang greeted Fang Zhu next to him. Let's go get samples. As long as we are sure that these indigenous people have no impact on humans, we can start building cities. Fang Zhu responded and quickly walked towards the planetary landing vehicle on the side. Point thanks to the month-long exercise in the gravity chamber, Fang Zhu's footsteps seemed extremely solid, without any sense of emptiness. Crack. Lu Yongchang walked around behind Fang Zhu and patted his shoulder gently. Not bad. It seems that the gravity chamber exercise is quite useful. Listening to the voice coming from the team's radio, Fang Zhu's movement suddenly stopped. Point he turned his head and glanced resentfully at Lu Yongchang, who was smiling. Point can it be useless? In the first few days after entering the gravity chamber, he even slept in the medical cabin. If it weren't for the help of the medical cabin, Fang Zhu even doubted whether he could successfully participate in the landing operation. Let's go. Fang Zhu changed the subject in a clumsy way. Let's go take samples. Seeing Fang Zhu's embarrassed look, Lu Yongchang burst into laughter. He didn't reveal Fang Zhu's thoughts and climbed directly onto the tall planetary landing vehicle. Point taking into account the various complex terrains that may exist on the planet's surface, the planetary landing vehicle has extremely strong off-road performance. Point this plus version of the off-road vehicle uses small-scale nuclear fusion as its energy source, and its body is made of the same carbine material as the Starship. Point in order to ensure the safety of scientific researchers, the designers even installed two small electromagnetic guns and a small laser cannon. As soon as he got into the cockpit, Lu Yongchang saw Fang Zhu's strange eyes. How? You know how to drive this thing? Lu Yongchang nodded calmly. Of course. Fang Zhu was amazed. When did you learn this? I remember, didn't the design drawings of this car just come out a month ago? Lu Yongchang sneered, pulled out the seatbelt from one side very skillfully, and then reached out to press a button on the side. Point the vehicle starts. The dashboard slowly lights up. 0. You take control. Fang Zhu. After retrieving the sample, Lu Yongchang returned directly to Zhuan number 2 without stopping. Point in the cabin of Zhuan 2, which was converted into a biological laboratory, Lu Yongchang wore protective clothing and carried out a series of inspections with ease. Point after experiencing Mars and Proxima Centauri b, he became more and more skilled in handling extraterrestrial life. Point when all the test results came out, Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. No big deal, just some simple organisms like cyanobacteria. Through the treatment of the nanofiltration device, these river waters can even be drunk directly. LV Yongchang looked at the various indicators in the holographic projection and said softly, it even contains a lot of minerals that are beneficial to humans. Nanofiltration device, in simple terms, is a filtration system based on nanorobots. This device is widely used on Proxima b to completely eliminate various alien microorganisms contained in the water source. So, how do these single-cell organisms survive in this environment? Fang Zhu asked curiously. Point while flipping through the holographic projection in front of him, LV Yongchang explained, have you heard of nitrogen-fixing plants? Fang Zhu frowned and thought for a while. You mean soybeans? LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu helplessly. That's a little bit right. On Earth, nitrogen-fixing plants are divided into 3 categories. The first 2 are plants that live in symbiosis with Rhizobia and Frankia. The other is a plant that lives in symbiosis with cyanobacteria. These single-cell organisms can absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere, and the process is somewhat similar to nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. Tests show that they can absorb nitrogen and convert it into nitrogen compounds at the same time, during the growth process, they can also release compounds such as amino acids and peptides. Compared to the solar system, this star system is too young. Perhaps, after waiting for another billion years, some complex life forms will appear on this planet. Chapter 324 Birthday. After confirming that the life on Ross 2 was still in its most primitive state and posed no great threat to humans, LV Yongchang directly ordered the start of the city construction project point. After completing a series of planning work, he boarded Zuan second again point before the construction of the central city was completed. He needed to return to the Earth to continue his research mission point during the voyage. LV Yongchang sat in a chair and slowly closed his eyes. His consciousness then came to the familiar fluorescent green space point against the fluorescent green background. The tree diagram outlined by bright white lines appeared particularly clear. The basic outline of the secondary civilization technology tree appeared in front of him. This means that under the leadership of LV Yongchang, human civilization has mastered the main technology of the secondary civilization within 60 years. Next, it is the filling work of each branch of the technology tree point when all the main technologies are unlocked. The difficulty of the filling work is not high, but it is an extremely tedious task. For example, the miniaturization of Type 2 laser weapons, the miniaturization and civilianization of ternary photon computers. As for why he had to do such a thankless job, LV Yongchang sighed silently in his heart and looked up at the top of the technology tree point as before. At the top of the second level civilization technology tree, there was a faint and extremely dim cursor. According to past experience, this technology should be the threshold to enter the third level civilization point. However, unlike before, this cursor was shrouded in thick fog. No matter how LV Yongchang adjusted the angle to observe, he could not see the content of the cursor at first. LV Yongchang did not know the doorway point until he tried to fill the branches of the technology tree. He realized the role of this fog point. Every time a branch technology is completed, the fog will become lighter. In other words, only when the entire technology tree is completely completed, the technology tree system will provide him with clues about the promotion to the third level civilization point. Of course, LV Yongchang also had crooked thoughts. For example, not relying on system prompts, directly advancing existing technology. But soon, he gave up his idea. Without a clear direction, blindly taking chances will only greatly delay the completion of the technology tree point. If you have that energy, you might as well honestly complete the various branch technologies of the technology tree point. At least, with the efforts of all scientific researchers, completing these branch technologies will only consume some time. For interstellar civilization, the least valuable thing may be endless time. Professor, we have arrived at the destination. With a slight vibration coming from the soles of his feet, Zero's voice sounded in his ears. Lu Yongchang quickly withdrew his consciousness and slowly opened his eyes. He skillfully unbuckled his seat belt and electromagnetic absorption device, stood up from the seat, and walked towards the hatch of Zuan Vi point. When he walked to the hatch that should have opened automatically did not open. He frowned, and a trace of uneasiness flashed in his eyes. Zero, Professor, I'm here. The holographic projection lit up, and Zero's virtual image appeared beside him. Why don't you open the door, LV? Yongchang said in a deep voice. Is there something wrong with the hatch? Extremely. Rarely. Zero did not answer Lu Yongchang's question, but said softly, Professor, please wait a moment. Hearing this, Lu Yongchang frowned even deeper. Zero didn't even answer his question. From the moment Zero was born, this has never happened before. Zero, what's going on? Lu Yongchang's voice became stern, and he gave an order to Zero directly. Tell me the reason immediately. Facing the order of the creator, Zero hesitated for a second and said, Professor, this is the order of Professor Su Yutong, LV. Yongchang was stunned and subconsciously asked, Su Yutong, why? His eyes were full of doubts. Why did this girl lock him up in Zuan number 2 for no reason? Zero responded in a flat tone, Professor Su Yutong's command permission is the second level. Do you want to use the highest permission to command overwrite? LV. Yongchang was stunned again. Wow, I didn't expect this girl to use her highest permission to stop him. Forget it. Lu Yongchang chuckled, sat back in his chair again, waved his hand and said, I want to see what she is keeping secret. 10 minutes later. Professor, time is up. Zeros. Voice sounded again. At the same time, the closed hatch in the distance suddenly opened. Yongchang didn't say anything, but stood up from the chair silently and walked towards the hatch. Looking at the hatch a few meters away, Yongchang frowned. It seems there seems to be nothing unusual. He suppressed the doubts in his heart and quickened his pace to rush to the hatch. At the moment he stepped out of the hatch, a familiar voice came from the side. Professor, happy birthday. Then, a small cake appeared in front of him. In the zero-gravity environment, the cake floated quietly in the air. Some simple patterns were carved on the surface of the cake. Yongchang suddenly froze in place. He turned his head to look at Su Yutong, who was smiling, and asked dully, birthday? In his memory, he seemed to have not celebrated his birthday for a long time. Thinking about it carefully, the last time he celebrated his birthday should have been in his previous life. Yes, Su Yutong smiled like a flower and said in a bright tone, today is your 100th birthday, Yongchang. It always feels weird. But after careful calculation, not counting the length of hibernation, I'm indeed 100 years old. Thanks to the effect of longevity hormone, he still maintains the appearance of his youth. That's why, when he looked at the word 100 on the cake, he felt particularly strange. Thank you, Yongchang clumsily stretched out his hand to pick up the floating cake in front of him. Looking at the smiling Su Yutong in front of him, he didn't know what to say for a moment. After a moment of silence, he slowly spoke and spoke softly. Where did this cake come from? As I recall, there seemed to be no cream on the starship. Su Yutong's expression froze. Obviously, she didn't expect that Yongchang would say such a thing at this time. After a moment of silence, Su Yutong breathed a long sigh of relief. I cloned a cow and a hen using genes from the gene bank. Right now, they're still in the biology lab. Anti-collision. What was banned and deleted in the previous article was Proxima Centauri human cloning technology. As for the other ingredients, it's actually not difficult to make. Yongchang was silent for a while and then said with an increasingly serious expression, thank you, Su Yutong's pretty face turned red, and she turned her gaze to Zhu and number 2 aside, and murmured in a low voice, just thank you. Chapter 325, Central City completed. There was another moment of silence. Without waiting for the desired response, Su Yutong's eyes showed a hint of disappointment, and the smile on his face gradually faded. Just when she was about to find a topic to talk about, Yongchang's voice suddenly sounded, I hope that when I'm 200 years old, I can also receive your cake. Still, there are still 300 years, 400 years. Yongchang's voice became weaker and weaker, and in the end, it was like a mosquito point. But to Su Yutong's ears, this was the most beautiful sound in decades. A touch of surprise instantly burst out in her eyes, but her cheeks were slightly red, her eyes were twitching, and she responded in a low voice. Facing Su Yutong's extremely fiery gaze, Yongchang subconsciously shifted his gaze. Even though his brain was continuously strengthened by the system, at this moment, he felt dizzy, as if he was drunk. Now, the hormone levels in my body should be high, right? An idea suddenly came to Yongchang's mind. Afterwards, this thought kept drifting away. Are the effects of hormones really that great on the human body? Does the human body's consciousness affect hormones, or does hormones affect consciousness? If I were only conscious, could I still feel this way? Professor, looking at Yongchang, who was standing there in a daze, a trace of doubt flashed in Su Yutong's eyes, and he stretched out his hand and waved it in front of him. What are you thinking about? Yongchang suddenly came back to his senses. Looking at Su Yutong, whose cheeks were still slightly rosy, he panicked. What to do? Is it possible to tell her that she is thinking about the relationship between hormones and consciousness? Will die. No matter which way it is, you will die. Cough. Yongchang coughed hard, and his system-enhanced brain began to work crazily. Yes, that's right. Yongchang reached out and grabbed the small cake in front of him and said in a hurry, I suddenly had an idea. I have to go to the office. Su Yongchang was stunned. Although she always felt that something was wrong, thinking of Yongchang's previous behaviors, she still smiled and said, "Okay, it's time for me to get busy." Seeing Yongchang turn and leave, Yongchang breathed a long sigh of relief. "Professor, is this love?" Suddenly, Zero's voice suddenly came from beside him. In just a few seconds, Yongchang's face turned red. How is this love? However, according to my observations, the current behavior patterns of you and Professor Yongchang are very consistent with. Shut up. Yongchang lowered his voice and shouted in a strong tone. Then, while unconsciously walking towards the office, he blushed and muttered in a low voice, "How can this be called love? If you are doing scientific research, can that be called love?" 2 years later, Ross 2 star viewed from a high altitude. The whole body is earthy yellow, with a thin ribbon winding across the vast expanse of land. It was a broad freshwater river named the Ross River. Detection data shows that the Ross River is 4,103 kilometers long. The starting point is the snowy mountains near the equator. The melting snow continued to gather, gradually forming this wide river that stretches for more than 4,000 kilometers. The average width of the Ross River is 82 kilometers, and the widest point reaches 230 kilometers. The average depth is 11.4 meters, and the deepest reaches 37 meters, although it is the only fresh water source on the surface of Ross 2. Its huge water storage capacity can fully meet the needs of human civilization. After all, compared with before, after becoming an interstellar civilization, human beings' recycling rate of water resources has been greatly improved. Next to this thousands-kilometer ribbon, a drop of silver white pearls suddenly appeared. That was the first city built by mankind. Central City. In just 2 years, a huge hemispherical building rises beside this wide river, an overall skeleton made of carbine, plus a skin made of carbon nanotube material. It is no exaggeration to say that this central city can even withstand the impact of some small meteorites. Next to Central City, on the other side of the Ross River, construction of a second city also started not long ago. If you zoom in closer, you can even see a huge army of robots and robotic arms on the foundation. Under Zero's command, these robots and robotic arms worked tirelessly day and night. The construction progress of city number 2 is also advancing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Above Ross 2. Earthport. Scientific researchers wearing spacesuits lined up neatly and walk towards Zuan 2 in front of them. Through the glass mask, you can clearly see the anticipation and excitement in everyone's eyes. The most perfect place for human beings to live, since leaving the earth is right before our eyes. I can finally live a stable life. Tao Yuda, who was in the queue, had joy written all over his face. Because he was wearing a helmet, Hebilin beside him did not hear him talking to himself. From Hebilin's perspective, Tao Yuda was mumbling something with a moron look on his face. Although Tao Yuda belonged to his elders, he still reached out and knocked on the helmet in front of him mercilessly. A burst of electric current sounded in the helmet. The two connected to the private communication channel. "What's wrong?" Tao Yuda looked confused. So Hebilin described the scene he had just seen with an extremely disgusted expression. "Isn't it just landing on a planet, academician? Tao, is it necessary to be so excited?" Tao Yuda laughed awkwardly and then looked at Hebilin in front of him with complicated eyes. He sighed softly. "After so many years, I can finally step on the yellow soil and see the blue sky and white clouds again. You won't understand this feeling." Hebilin curled his lips. "What's the big deal? Can't we see it any time in the holographic theater?" Tao Yuda's eyes became more complicated. He shook his head repeatedly. "It's different. It's a pity that the environment of Ross 2 is not suitable for human survival. Otherwise, I'll take you out for a walk and you'll understand. Imagine, on a lush grassland, with a lush forest in the distance, a sunny day, blue sky and white clouds, and the feeling of the breeze blowing on your face. That's the breath of freedom." Hebilin was silent for a while and said again, "The Starship Fresh Air System, high power daylight, and holographic theater can show it perfectly." Tao Yuda sighed deeply. He no longer explained, but just reached out and patted his shoulder. "I hope that one day I can let you feel real freedom." After speaking, He turned around and followed the pace of the team, looking at Talyuda's back. The doubts in Ibelin's eyes became more and more intense. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.